And before you get started on this episode of Zapped to the Past, we would just like to say thank you to the following people: Andy Marsh, Cole Hutchinson, David Hearn, Sven Osa, 2000 DC, Gary Heather, Roger McNally, and Joshua Dove. Now, these awesome people have chosen to back our Patreon, and we are hugely appreciative of the support they offer. If you want to join them and get a mention in next month's shout out, access to our Discord server, and any special releases we put out, and loads of other cool stuff, then sign up by the 21st of the month at patreon.com/Zapped to the Past for little more than the price of a pint of beer. Believe us, it really does help us out. Now, please enjoy this episode of Zapped to the Past. And welcome to episode 45 of Zapped to the Past. I am Adrian Mills and I am joined, as always, by Graham Raddings. If you have not listened before, this is a podcast where we discuss games that were released for the Commodore 64. A few weeks back, before Christmas, we looked at our first batch of games from issue 22 of Zap 64, which we are in no way affiliated with. And we were perturbed by Paperboy, bothered by Breakthrough, and haunted by Highlander. This week we continue our look at the games in February 1987, along with what was lighting up our TV and cinema screens that month. So Graham, tell us what we have going on in this episode.
In this gigantic new on the gentrified high street, nicely branded meat and cheese packed delicatessen of an episode, we load up on carbs, grab our rubber dinghy, and head to Poconos for some arcade-style refuse collecting in the pleasing park patrol, shudder in dismay at the ridiculously aquatic and aeronautically challenged world of the hopeless Howard the Duck, and grab our shootiest rifles and go on a kill-crazy rampage in the car boot commando world of LA SWAT. We also break out our rulers, set squares and compasses for a funless game of futuristic air hockey in the angularly challenging world of Xeno, leap through the crappy trees like a two-frame blocky buffoon in the simply horrible Legend of Kage, and once again face the 8-bit block toilet horror of another C64 licensing turd jam with the utterly shoddy Scooby Doo. If that selection of finely sliced spiced meats hasn't quite pumped you full of enough protein, we also grab our bitone shoes, powerfully tri-finger and thumb grip our balls, and go bowling for multiple strikes in 10th frame. Speedily shoot and kill everything while our ears are gently massaged with stunning music in light force, slowly float over a dreary landscape wondering why we have a target reticule in Xevious, before slowly floating over another dreary landscape, this time in slow dotty 3D, wondering why we're disguised as a bird in the stupid 8-bit D-make Starglider. On top of all that, we try and yet fail to have fun in the totally stupid multi-lane game world of It's a Knockout, call out to the jungle animals, wherever they might be named, and ask for guidance in the terrible Tarzan, explore the graphically troubled fantasy zones in the 8-bit conversion of the hydraulic sprite-scaling behemoth arcade Space Harrier, before finally reaching out to Third Earth, grabbing our Sword of Omens, and crying out for our Bombjacks, in the mysterious Bombjack 2. Good lord, some of these games are about as much use as a truckload of dead rats in a tampon factory. AD, we must steel ourselves for what lies ahead. The wounds could run pretty deep.
That's a lot. That is a lot. It's another lot of games.
This month is absolutely crammed with games. It is
a very crammed month. And so this is our... this is 1980... No, where are we now? 2022. We've done.
I hope it is.
We're in. I hope so. If you're listening to this somewhere else, in the future, this is now 2022 for us. Or maybe it's not. Who knows? Anyway, so this is the middle episode of February 1987. So this is the Two Towers. So we've got to deal with Saruman and Sauron, and there'll be the Battle of Helm's Deep and Theoden being miserable and all kinds of stuff going on. So
this is also, of course, where Gandalf discovered the power of Persil, as I believe.
Yeah, he does. He turns into the White Wizard. The Ents turn up.
There's no fun in slow-moving trees.
Yeah, there's loads of stuff goes on in this one. Pippin and Merry drink the growth juice.
Growth juice. That is just such a rank thought. It defies belief. Hobbit enlargement tonics.
They drink the Hobbit enlarger.
I'm not sure I even want to think about hobbits enlarging and getting bigger. Embiggening of the
Embiggened,
hobbits.
yeah, exactly. Oh dear, they do. Right, let's crack into the games because we've got too many games. Our first one up. This was a sizzler. This was £1.99. This is Park Patrol. So, Park Patrol, what is Park Patrol? It's a budget re-release from 1984 of an Activision game. And I do believe that this never, according to the reviews, seemed to never had an official UK release when it first came out. So, it's never hit these shores until now. Which, I'm going to say, is a bit of a shame. I thought this is a really good game. So, this would not have looked out of place in the arcades in 1984 when it first appeared. I thought this is quite an arcadey style game, and I could see this working quite well. So what is Park Patrol? It is a pseudo 3D left to right scrolling clean 'em up game where you play the role of the park keeper, and you must tidy up a number of dropped items of litter to progress to the next level. There are 5 levels in total. The play area is wraparound, so like Defender. So you just go around this park, it is like Defender. But unlike Defender, the screen has various levels of parallax scrolling to provide quite a decent sort of 3D feel to the visuals. So the screen itself is split in half. The top half is green for the ground, so there's plants and turtles and stuff moving around up there, and the lower half is water, so you can wander on land, and what the whole role of this is to pick up stuff. So you can wander on land where you'll see litter, you can wander on that to your heart's content, and then you've got a little boat that you can jump into, and then you can patrol along the water where there's also litter. So what you've got to do is you've got to alternate between the two, land and water, because there's litter in both, and the whole point is to pick up, I think, is it 12 bits of litter, 14? It's a number of bits of litter that are on this level. So there are quite a few hazards to navigate around. You've got turtles patrolling the land, and you have to try and not hit them, otherwise you lose a life. This is in the first level, so on the water there are swimmers swimming about. There are logs which you need to avoid when you're pootling about in your boat. The controls are quite snappy, it's quite fast, it's quite responsive, and so you don't want to swim into anyone, because if you do, you punch your boat and you'll lose another life. Another thing that's going on here is this, I'm not quite sure why, but you're constantly losing calories. So it's weird sort of thing. This person's got a...
It's a very energetic job.
Massively energetic. It must be really hot there. Actually, I guess it is in, California. So you're constantly losing calories, and you need to replenish these. And there's in the middle of the level, so as it scrolls and wraps around, there's a park hut. And so you can nip into this park hut, and that replenishes your calories. So you're basically nipping there for a Snickers or something to, for helping you. I was going to say work, rest, and play, but that's Mars bar, isn't it?
Yeah, that
not
is
Snickers.
Mars bar.
What's the Snickers logo? What do they say?
Get some nuts, I think.
That's the one. Hobbit nuts. The levels they get progressively harder as you complete them. You go to a next level. You get new critters that appear in. So you get snakes. You get other things in the water. You get different bits. You get ants. All kinds of stuff. You don't want to hit any of it. The music's quite nice and fits the game. Although it's very 1984. So, don't expect Hubbard and Galway, but it is what it is, and it fits quite well. The graphics are similar. They're nice sprites. They're quite chunky. The scrolling's really fast. The parallax is quite good to add to the screen depth. The controls are good, snappy. Everything works really well. And not just that, but I thought that this game was quite forward. We come across these every now and again. We find a game that's really forward thinking in its presentation and what it offers to the player. And this is a really good example of that, because there's when you start it, you can go into a menu screen, and you don't just have the option to play a park ranger, the male park ranger. You can switch. You can play a man or boy or a girl. So you've got boy or a girl. So it depends what you want to do, which is quite nice for 1984. But not only that, but you've got quite a granular level of control to how you want the difficulty of each level to be, because you can change what critters appear and how many of them appear on each level to basically change the level of difficulty to suit how you're getting on. So if you're finding a level too hard, you can just go into the menu and just lower the number of monsters that appear and just play through it that way. So this is really unusual for the time. It's unusual for 1987, let alone 1984. And this all works really well, and this thoroughly deserves its 94% in my opinion, because it's just really good for £2. This is a proper bargain, and we've maligned Firebird in the past. We've called them Fire Turd because they'll release anything. But in this respect, bringing this over and getting this finally released over here was a bit of a coup. Because this is a proper budget gem, and I think that, and I'd never really played it. I think I might have played it once years and years ago, but on revisiting this, I really enjoyed my time with this and find myself playing it for quite some time. this is just a really clever little arcade game. And as I said, if I'd have seen this in an arcade, and I don't know if its roots are in the arcade or whether it's just a C64 game. It's an Activision game, so I think it is just a C64 game. If I'd have seen this in the arcade, I could have pumped quite a few 10p's into this. So I really enjoyed this. And I think that it still stands up today as just a really cute little, nice, well thought out, well conceived, well presented, nice looking, nice sounding arcade game. I thoroughly enjoyed it. What about you?
Yeah, I did like it, actually. I mean, I didn't think I'd ever spend as much time in the Poconos National Park as I did, to be honest, because my initial instincts when it first loaded were that this is going to be another one of those kind of low price, sort of budget, naff, not very interesting, not very fun. But I couldn't have been more wrong, really. There's a lot to like here. This was produced from, it wasn't Firebird, well, it was Firebird, but it was Silverbird. It was their kind of, I don't know what you describe it. It was it wasn't ever released in the US, so I don't know if Silverbird was their kind of version of US Gold. I don't know. Anyway, so you've got some really nice, simple but nice gameplay ideas and simple graphics in here. Obviously, the sprites are quite nicely designed. It does look like you're right, it does look like a sort of early arcade game. And that's not a bad thing, because by doing, keeping it to that look, so you've got that kind of nice, simple parallax scrolling, you know, it's got that, like you say, Defender style, sort of backwards and forwards, sideways to sideways, because it keeps that logic simple and it keeps to a simple premise, then the game plays really well. And we've said this loads and loads of times before, when you do these kind of games, if you just keep to a simple game logic, and the early arcades were masters at it, stick to a simple game logic, keep it simple, and you're going to have a good time. And that's what they do here. So you get the basic premise and the basic stuff right. You get the engine of the game running really smoothly, and this game runs smooth as a nut. Get it all running really smoothly, and then you can focus on making the game fun and challenging and all those things. And none of those things are bad things to have. So I really quite enjoyed my time with this. It's a good little game to have on your radar. And I think it's safe to say that if you've got, I mean, for a budget price, this game's crazy good, right? Because there's games that are full price that we review in this very episode, which are abominations compared to this cute little game. So I think there's a lot to like about it.
Yeah, indeed.
I mean, I might raise the dreaded spectre of longevity, because the one thing about these kind of arcade-inspired games, even at budget price, is that they do the same thing repeatedly. But, as you say, in this one, you've still got those options to make the game a bit more varied. It does ramp up the difficulty. It's not an easy game. You're not going to get an easy run-through on this game. And an extra thought I had around the controls, because the controls in this game are super simple, but it suddenly made me think, wouldn't this really lend itself to the controls of some kind of mobile game?
Yeah, absolutely. Left or right, up or down would control you, yeah. Tap to jump. Yeah, you could really see that quite easily. I mean, to say about the longevity of it, I mean, that you could always like pump the difficulty level up really hard and challenge yourself to, if you're going to. And
you can do that. And I'm just not always sure that that's the best route. I mean, I know this is a 1984 game, sort of turned 1987, but I'm not always sure that the best route for making a game more interesting is to just increase the difficulty. But if you can imagine on the mobile space with a game like this, you could have upgrade trees, you could have different kinds of boats you could upgrade, different kinds of things you could do. There's a whole raft of things that this lends itself in the sort of mobile space of this game. So I think, this game's arguably, the logic is simple and ahead of its time. This is a Tony Ngo game. I don't think he made any other games, but I'd like to have seen more of them.
What else did he do? I don't know what else he did.
Well, I think that's the tragedy, because I don't think he did another game after this. I don't know
really?
why. Oh. So we're summarised then, I suppose, really. I actually like this. Didn't think I would, but I did. Nice graphics, decent enough sound. You'll get away with it. It's kind of early 84 sound, but it's decent enough. There's a lot to like here. What a nice little game it is. Really good fun, yeah. Enjoyable.
It is. And a nice one to open the episode with, I think. So it's not always we start with a good one, but this is a new year, new us.
New year, new us indeed.
Maybe this is us turning over a new leaf to be more positive about games. What do you think? What do you think with our next one?
I think it's about to get challenged, is what I think.
But not to give anything away. Let's move on to our next one. Because our next one, Graham, you have the pleasure of the serpent to tell us all about, I don't know if this is a conversion, a version, whatever the hell this is, but this is Howard the Duck. So have it, Howard the Duck.
Honestly, Howard the Duck was a really terrible film. Now, it came out, and I think It was meant to be kind of a sort of a rebirth of a really cute character that people could get behind, and it was called Howard, a New Breed of Hero or something in I think in Europe essentially, but it was Howard the Duck. And for all intents and purposes, this is kind of like it's not a Ninja Turtle type thing, but in the film you've got a duck who's a master of quack fu. And he has to go on a kind of an adventure in the film, and it's associated around what is essentially a Marvel character, I think, who
he is from the Marvel universe.
Is kind of like in the film. It's kind of I think it was meant to be originally an animated film. It then got changed into kind of a half live action thing. So you've got this weird animatronic talking wisecracking duck. Nobody really liked it, and so. It bombed massively at the box office. I mean, it's like spectacularly bombed. It's famous because of its association with George Lucas. He was the exec producer. Came out of that kind of stable of the Lucasfilm sort of thing. Absolutely bombed at the box office. In fact, it's classed as one of the worst films of all time. And so the game comes along, and this is the game of the film. Now, that's never going to be a good thing, is it? Because you're basing a game on a crap film.
Yes.
And it wasn't the beloved character that, everyone could really get behind. So this was no E.T. This is nothing like that. No Indiana Jones. This is no Star Wars. There's no Darth Vader in here. This is a wisecracking, crappy duck that nobody really liked. And so the game comes along. In the game, the story is that your two best friends, Phil and Beverly, have been captured by a dark overlord. He's keeping them captive in an active volcano, and you've got to rescue them. And as the master of quack fu, you've got to make your way through these maze-like landscapes, and I say make your way, but kind of scrabble about, really. Make your way through these landscapes, try and eventually rescue your friends, and that's kind of the game. Now, it starts off with kind of an elongated intro sequence where Howard the Duck is on some kind of stage. He comes off, and then you're presented with these really weird graphics of Howard. It looks to me like he's kind of impersonating a sort of an OAP. He looks really weird. He looks like a duck. And then you get into the game. Now, the game you control with the joystick. You have a little Howard the Duck sprite. They're not particularly great graphics. The background's awful. It's really slow. That he plods around badly. But the main complaint I have is that at parts of this game, you have to either cross like some water, some streams, and at a certain point you have to fly. Neither of which this duck can do. Now, you tell me, on what planet do you make a game about a duck where the duck can't fly or swim?
If it looks like a duck and it quacks like a duck, it should be able to swim like a duck.
It just beggars belief that would even happen. So you end up with this really weird situation of trying to control a walking duck slowly, avoiding these enemies. You get to a part where there's water and you kind of flippy, floppy, clappy, flappy about until you get to the other side. Then you kind of navigate your way around through to the other bit. And it takes forever to navigate this first level, which is kind of this jungle scene. I think there's actually 3 or 4 sequences in the game. So you've got jungle, part where you fly, there's a part where you're on a bridge with a bazooka, I think, and then you have to shoot something with it. I think that's kind of it, and it's a really short game. So you've got to make your way through this sort of naff graphic experience, avoiding these weird enemies. It's just so ploddy, it's just so slow, and it's kind of unforgivable, really. There's not a great deal you can like about this. The graphics and the sound aren't very good at all. Very substandard for the kind of money that must have been put behind this. When it first starts, there's an entire team of people behind the game, and it must have taken a good chunk of time. They just haven't really thought about what the game needed to be, so you end up with just I wouldn't even say there were scenes from the film, because I'm not even sure they are. You just end up sort of going around, plodding about. It's awkward to control. The game is too short. And in the long and the short of all of this is that this is badly put together and badly designed all round. And my final comment on this is that this game is a real lump of shit, and I stand by that because it is. If you make a game about a duck, however wisecracking and however kung fu efficient, quack fu efficient that particular duck may be, if that duck can't fly and that duck can't swim, I would put it to you that ain't a duck. That is some other animal that you put in there. You may as well have put in another animal that possibly could have. It could have been Howard the dog, Howard the frog, Howard the leopard. What it isn't is anything decent, and it's a substandard piece of garbage, which, based on the volume of amount of money that must have been spent to obtain that license, is kind of a shame. So I didn't like it at all, but what about you?
My first comment on this is they had to go some way to be worse than the film, but like Jurassic Park, they found a way. They did. This is simplistic follow the trail game, followed by a rubbish flying bit, and then a third section. And now, you thought you had it bad, right? I did the flying bit. I'll come to that in a moment.
Why on earth did you torture yourself with that?
Hang on. Why? Because I'm going to talk about it. Or why did I do it, you mean?
Yeah.
Because we were playing the game, because it's really short. So third section, then I got to a third section, but before the third section started, the game just ended and gave me the end credits, presumably because I picked the normal difficulty level, and you have to pick the hardest difficulty level to do the third section. So the difficulty is only based seemingly on just giving you all the game to play, which is ridiculous. And I didn't go back to it. I watched a YouTube clip of what the third section was. However, you get up that bridge and you have to jump on that molehill thing where those enemies come out. And you jump on those, and then it just fades out and does it. It's a load. So then it gives you the microlight. The microlight, there's winds that blow you down to the bottom of the island, and the sound effect is just. I put here. Why is the microlight noise so ear-shreddingly awful? And it controls.
It's so bad.
It controls inversely. Now I like inverse controls, but you're not actually flying from a 3D perspective, so you just need to move up. But it's down for up.
At this point, nothing makes sense with this stupid piece of shit.
I didn't quite understand at first, but you're getting blown by crosswinds. There's only one way up, so you get all the way to the top. You got to go across to the right, and then you get into the volcano, and then you get to the third level. I didn't get to the third level because it just ended for me. I went, well done, you've completed it. I went, I haven't completed it. This game is stupid. When you do get to the third level, if you watch the YouTube thing, he lands in the volcano to cross another bridge, and he's got a massive bazooka from somewhere.
Why would a duck need a bazooka? And why am I even asking that stupid bloody question?
Yeah, it's just rubbish. The boss in a level, the boss is just at the end of the bridge. So there's only 3 levels.
Yeah, that's right.
So he's just there. It's just crap. I put this is a destitute man's Dan Dare, the 30-minute timer and the wandering round. So because he's got a 30-minute timer and so on. And I put this is on par with crap like Gertie Goose.
Ooh, it's true though. It is.
And my comment at the end is the fact that 4 people worked on this is baffling. Just awful. I don't understand. I literally do not understand this.
It makes you wonder if that team of 4 was actually 2 people doing the work and 2 people periodically hitting them with a frying pan over the head or something.
They took a massive Howard. That's what they did. In fact, I'm going to start using the word Howard for when I go to the toilet. I'm just have to drop off the Howard.
I've just got to drop a couple of Howards off at the pool. You won't swim.
This game was appalling.
Bad.
19% was too much.
Yeah, Zapp hated it.
It really did, yeah. I felt like I'd been fed Howard. I thought like I'd been on holiday and I was having tummy trouble. Let's speak of it no more and let's move on. All right, so our next game is Los Angeles Swat. It's another budget game. £2. And so what is Los Angeles SWAT? So this is it's a budget game, as I said, and this is from the people who brought us Ninja and Street Surfer.
Not a great pedigree.
So this bodes well. So this is what's this? This is Budget Urban Commando. This is Aldi Commando, and it's basically the US if Donald Trump had got in for a second term.
Okay,
is what I've noted here. So gangs have taken over the worst parts of LA, which I thought begged the question: why would they not take over the nicer parts? I mean, why take over the worst parts? It seems weird. Anyway, you're sent in as a 3-man harbinger of death team to mow everything down that comes towards you with a club. You don't know anything that comes towards you with a club or a Molotov cocktail, because your job is to go in and save some hostages who've been taken by these ne'er-do-wells, these bad gangs. So you've got 3 men. You control one of them. Should you die, so you're a member of the LA SWAT, basically. So you're a cop and you can shoot. The enemies don't shoot. There are some guns on emplacements, weirdly, but mostly they just run at you with a stick. Should one of your men die, all 3 are on screen at the same time. Should one of them die, control switches to another one of the trio until they're all dead. And I thought that's quite a nice way to do lives. It reminded me of Highway Encounter and the way that did it, which was, all the Daleks on screen at once. So that's it, really. There's not much to this. You walk up the screen and you shoot everything in your way. That's it. You shoot innocent bystanders, loses you 1,000 points. That's it. But that's the only penalty for police shooting whoever they want. So the visuals are okay in a budget way. It's a bit easy to just wander up the sidewalk and avoid most of the enemies until you get to the crossroads and a phalanx of enemies. I don't get to use the word phalanx very often, but I'm using it here. A phalanx of enemies wander on for you to kill them. Once you killed all them, a faster guy with a woman as a hostage who darts about. It's kind of like that enemy commander guy comes running out at the end of Commando. So if you manage to shoot him, the woman is saved and you can carry on. If you manage to shoot her, well, you lose 1,000 points, but hey ho, that's what happens. There's no penalty really, you just carry on. You do that and you proceed to the next level and you repeat, and there's just more enemies to shoot. All the residents that come walking down the street look like pimps. I didn't know if they were old women or they were pimps. I thought they were pimps. They look like pimps to me. Maybe both. Women pimps, yeah, it could be. I think my problem with this game, and I didn't enjoy it, I have to say, I thought it was a bit rubbish to play. Some people seem to like this, but I've had a bit of a strong reaction to this one. I thought there's a strong argument that this really is not aged well in terms of looking at it from, we've called out other games, your things like Mermaid Madness, your Frank Bruno's, your things like that, from looking at it in a modern context. And maybe, I don't really want to go down that route. Maybe that's an argument for another podcast, but I felt I didn't like the fact that I was an American policeman just mowing down people with a gun. I think that's not aged well, shall I say. And I think that just left a bit of a troubling taste in my mouth, and I didn't particularly like it. So, there you go. That's just my take. But I guess if you were looking for a budget commando at the time, and you could handle, because the music. The music was bloody awful. It was dreadful. But if you were looking for a budget commando, you had a couple of quid and you wanted to just shoot stuff and walk up the screen, and you want something that resembled Commando in gameplay style but was a budget version of it, this would probably float your boat. And I can see why some people might like this. It just, for me, this is another game that really hasn't aged very well. Some people thought, that Green Beret and things didn't age particularly well, but I think in comparison to them, this has aged a lot worse. So I had a bit of a problem with this, and I didn't particularly like it. It was too easy and a bit boring in the grand scheme of things. So, I don't know, that was my take on it. What did you think to Los Angeles SWAT?
Pretty much the same deal, really. I mean, it's just a poor man's Commando at best, and it's kind of, described it as a trashy and somewhat misplaced Commando variant. Weirdly bleak game, this. So, and it's got that kind of, there's a bleakness to this being endlessly attacked by these gang members. You kind of have this, what looks like some kind of a sniper rifle, and you shoot them out, and then you get that weird bit where all the gang members suddenly fly at you, and you've got one of them's got a hostage, and you can shoot them out, and it's just, the whole game was just leaves a bit of a bad taste in your mouth for a number of reasons. One, because it's, I think, contextually a little bit, it's a bit rough graphically, and everything else. It's obviously it's $1.99, so it's chunky around the edges, should we say? But okay, it's $1.99, and I suppose there is a level of playability to it. I mean, it is what it is. It's just endlessly scrolling upwards, shooting people, really. I just found that concept a bit mindless and a bit bleak, and maybe, again, if on a Sunday afternoon for $1.99, is this going to keep you occupied? I don't know. For the same reason that, at least Commando was short, mercifully short. Who Dares Wins is better than this. If you're going to go for a game where you're running around shooting at things. This just felt like it was a bit, I don't know, just like it was, maybe it's underdeveloped, but I say that for $1.99, I think it is what it is. It's just bleak, Commando-ish $1.99's worth of Commando. It's car boot Commando. And I think...
Little Commando, Aldi Commando, whatever.
It is. It's just that, I can't believe it's not Commando type thing. For $1.99, maybe you'd get away with it. It didn't really float my boat, I have to say. I thought it was really a really poor imitation of games that are slightly better, even though they're more expensive. But there it is. I didn't think much else to it.
Just transplanting the sort of the Commando, because it's war. Commando, Who Dares Wins, and Green Beret and things like that. They're set in war environments, so it has a different context. Whether you get a jingoistic about it or whatever, but there's a context to it, which is it's a war. There's people running around with the same sort of guns and patrols and all that kind of stuff. So there's a context to that. This is just well-armored police mowing down gang members.
Yeah, it is.
And I didn't get on with that. And I think, and it also led me down to think, I was thinking about this in the mid-'80s. There was loads of films as well that, I think if you're going to be cast as a gang member in a film in the mid-'80s, this is sort of representative of that. If you think about like the gangs at the end of that Police Academy film, or in films like Class of 1984 and what have you, or Class of 1990, whatever it was. There's just loads of them, weren't there? There's loads of, if you were a gang member in a mid-1980s film, you were a ne'er-do-well with a leather waistcoat.
Yeah. Well, that started way before the 80s. You've got...
I did. The Warriors and stuff like that, I guess. But
yeah, the thing is, this game is of its time. It's horribly of its time. Every cop drama and cop show and have featured at some point a SWAT team that were flown in and, get the SWAT team in. Die Hard did it. Every movie around, action movie around that time had some kind of SWAT team. Even the Blues Brothers has a SWAT team where they scale the building and then jump out of the thingies and the hut and all that. It's just a thing of the 80s, and this game is, it's a result of the cauldron boiling, and out this pops. It's one of those kind of games. It's just anything, for my money, best left there. Yeah,
the cover's a bit problematic as well. It's just I bet you can guess what the cover is. It's a cop, what looks like a cop with a massive gun and a huge
big gun in the game.
Well, he's got huge telescopic sights on it, but of course he's got a mustache, sunglasses, and a cap.
Yeah, no, I get it.
Of course he has.
I get it. It's that its heart and its soul is in an era where that kind of thing was very representative of the kind of what people expected. And for us, there's a fascination in the UK because our police force has never really been positioned that way. For us, the friendly Bobby on the street with famous, the police helmet and that kind of, this idea of a SWAT team, an LA SWAT team, is something very out of the movies and very unusual. And so I think that's probably why it had a bit more appeal to, it's that culture of difference, isn't it?
I think so.
And because it got a good review in Zapped, they really liked it. And I think not just because it was budget, because they seem to think that it had a really good premise. And I think it's a review and a game of its time. There's no doubt about that. One of the really good examples of this that we've come across, actually, a game that really does show what the 80s was a bit like in terms of its representation of crime and punishment and media and the response to it and stuff like that. I mean, I think of films like Predator 2, sorry, not so much Predator, but Predator 2, where, you got the deadly voodoo posse or something bizarre and just
yeah,
stuff
exactly,
like that.
yeah.
And I mean, it's not strictly 80s, but it was a thing that kind of persisted, didn't it? And this LA SWAT thing is an example of that.
Yeah, it really is. There you go. LA SWAT would have, Donald Trump would probably like it, but maybe he wouldn't have liked our next one. Or maybe he would, who knows? Let's move on to our next one. Graham, tell us about Xeno. I presume you pronounce it Xeno?
I would say Xeno. Yeah, Xeno.
Xeno, so like Xenomorph, but not quite as interesting as Xenomorph. Tell us about Xeno, Graham.
Xeno is a futuristic sports game that resembles air hockey, and that's what I thought. It's a 1 or 2 player game. If you play it one player, you can have a computer-controlled opponent, and you control kind of a ground skimmer. The aim is to hit a kind of a hockey puck thing into your opponent's goal, a la air hockey type idea. It's done in a turn-based manner where you control a movement line, which sets up an intended move before it's enacted, and then the surrounding walls rebound it all over the place. So it's both a puck and it kind of skims around. So there you have to factor that into your shot selection. You're not required to hit the puck with a shot, so some shots can be defensive. But you've got to toggle between 1 and 9 seconds for the shot time and between 1 and 9 minutes for the length of each of the 4 quarters. And that's the game. It's a kind of a 2-player space futuristic, I would say air hockey, but I don't know is it air hockey? So
yeah, I put air hockey crossed with shove halfpenny.
Graphically, all right. I didn't think much to the graphics. I thought it was okay. I didn't really think the game was much fun to play at all. It just lacked any of the real interest. This game featured nothing that would have made it interesting. So it's just literally this game, get very few controls about what the game is. Some kind of, zippy zappy angular thing. But it's a crap, and at times quite uncontrollable as well. I was zipping about and not quite kind of going at the right angles that I wanted to do, and I'm not sure if that was made by my joystick controls or whatever. But I found it's just a dull futuristic version of a game that doesn't need to be in the future again. So no, it's just just taking really good games and make a game if you're going to make an air hockey game, just make it air hockey. Just do that. You don't have to set it in some kind of futuristic world and then add all this stupidity to it, which is what they did. And in the end, what you end up with is a load of Xeno crap. So I didn't like it. What about you?
No, I didn't like it either. I thought it was just, it's not that I didn't like it. It's just, I think my final comment, I'll just read my final comment, blue and dull.
Yeah, it's just dull.
It's really blue. Did you notice that there's a terrible, because you said it's turn-based, yeah?
Mm.
So there's a really, really bad, that's really bad, because I got ahead, so I scored, and then I just put my joystick down.
Right.
Because the computer couldn't go until I'd been, and I just waited for the countdown to go down, and I won.
Yeah.
Imagine that'd be really annoying.
You could do that if you wanted to, I suppose.
I did do that because I wanted to test if it would actually let me do that, and it didn't. I won. It went well.
That's the lamest thing I think I've ever heard you do. It's the most boring thing you could possibly do. Do you know what? I made this game not work so I could win. Honestly,
yeah, absolutely.
The desire to win overwhelmed
terrible
you.
Game design. Because he should be punished for not going.
Yeah, maybe it's terrible to game design. They just didn't anticipate that someone would come along and they're that eager to win that they would outlame the lameness of this game.
Well, there you go. I did it, and I'm proud of my decision to just down my joystick because I went off and did something else.
I could go with it though. I could totally go with that.
So I think that's you should be. You have to have 10 seconds. If you ain't gone, then the other person can go or whatever, or it resets or something.
Just found
anyway, yeah.
Dull game.
It is really dull. There are 3 sprites and they're blocky at that, and you take it in turns. I put shove halfpenny cross with air hockey.
Yeah.
It's that, isn't it? In a massively large empty arena.
Yeah.
I might imagine if you've got 2 players and you agree not to do the joystick down rule, then this could be all right if you're both hacking away at the stuff.
But
why would you want to?
Well, why would you want to? And there are better 2-player games. If you said to your mate, should we play Leaderboard or World Games or Xeno? It's not going to. Nobody would say that. Those words have never been said. I'm the first person that's ever said that.
That is true. You are.
And they're never going to be said again.
Imagine if someone said, though, do you want to play Xeno or a quick game of Mule?
I'd rather play Mule.
Oh, there we go. Actually, yeah. At least Mule had that bloody crazy auction house.
Yeah, and it was 4-player.
It was 4-player. As crazy as it was. Yeah, Xeno is really dull, isn't it?
Yeah.
It's really boring. Just naffle to it. 30% is about right, because it's just nothing.
I wouldn't have given it 30%. I think some of these reviews, they seem to go really weird in this issue. There's games that should have got really bad scores, and they're kind of not. I mean, 30 is bad.
It's 30% because it's not great, but it works. It does its stuff. There's no bugs. It does exactly what it says in the tin, which is
well, there
blue
is a
and
bug.
dull.
If you put your joystick down, you can just win by attrition.
Which I call good planning. I call that strategy.
The Rambo method.
So, yeah, absolutely. But, it is what it is. I just put it down and then walked away. Just confident in my ability to win.
Yes.
Obviously, you wouldn't be able to do that in 2-player because your opponent just grabbed the joystick off you and hit you and make you go. So it doesn't work in 2-player.
Yeah.
But in 1-player, it's a legitimate strategy.
Yeah, and not a very legitimately good game. So
no, it's not. No. So that's Xeno. Let's talk no more about Xeno because it was boring. Let's
move
on to
it could always be the next game.
It could be.
Just prepare yourself. Take some deep breaths. You're going to need them for this one.
All right. Yeah. So this is The Legend of Kage. To make it more interesting. Legend of Kage, I guess. Legend of Kage. So The Legend of Kage. So this is another arcade conversion. This is an old arcade, though, wasn't it? 1984. And let's be honest, we've all been there when you've been walking along with your best gal and a lusty dragon appears out of nowhere and steals her away. We've all been there. It's happened to the best of us. So off you go, and I put on a 2-frame adventure to bring her back that has all the excitement of a wet weekend in Morecambe. That's my comment on this. This is a right to left scroller.
Yeah. Yeah, it is.
They hadn't quite figured things out back in 1984. Clearly, let's just go right to left.
Yeah,
which might make more sense considering don't you write? Do they write right to left in Japan? I don't know.
I don't know if that has any bearing on this, but if it does,
well,
yeah, they do read that way. Yeah, they do operate.
So that maybe that's to them. This is the right way round.
Yeah,
going right
it's
to
entirely
left.
possible. It's entirely possible.
But I don't know. Anyway, so you are. I didn't note down the name of the guy you play, and I don't care. Except I don't think it is it?
No, I don't think it is. It doesn't matter. Just call him what he is. Blocky Bob. Blocky Bob.
Blocky. So you play Blocky Bob, and you go off on a through the wilds of Morecambe to rescue your best gal from a dragon or a dragon lord or a dragon king or something or other. So you go from right to left. You get attacked, and I say this in the loosest possible term by various, and I say these words in the loosest possible term, various ninjas and wizards and swordsmen as you run along, taking them down with shurikens, and I say this in the loosest possible term, a quick sword strike, because there ain't nothing quick about this sword strike. That's in the arcade version, all that's as you do sort of thing. This is a blocky monstrosity which sees you ambling along with all the speed of a pensioner on a Sunday walk, unreactively throwing out spinning stars and swinging your sword at the wrong time, trying to take down more blocky nightmares. The music, the arcade version is fast, isn't it? I don't know if did you have a look at that thing? It's an unusual game. It like this one, it's 2-frame animation. It's simple in what it is, but it's fast and it's got some nice music and a pace to it and kinetic energy and all that. That has been stripped away from this with surgical precision to leave an absolute travesty of a monstrosity of a nightmare. So you're just left with a blocky, floaty, dull, horrible nightmare that has all the charm of a befouled toilet. That was my comment on this. There's 6 stages to fight through, from the forest, moat, ramparts. There's 2 castle bits, and then back into the forest. But there's no appeal to go any further than the first level on this. It's an awful conversion. And I get that this is probably more to do with its Kung Fu Wire Fu heritage. But this game has the mightiest of bounds.
Just a bit.
That we've seen so far. We've seen some mighty bounds from knights, from frogs, from... What else have we seen? From hedgehogs, from craptured. We've seen them, but this one, oh my God.
Yeah, I think this is the highest, I think.
This is the highest of the high. He jumps fully into the treetops.
He does.
And I found the animation when you were climbing a tree really troubling.
Everything's troubling.
It bothered me in ways that I didn't feel comfortable with.
Yes.
This is pure arse. This is dog egg. And I will say that word. There you go, have it.
Said.
But this was dreadful. I don't know. They've taken the 2-frameness of the arcade and everything, but they've married it to these nightmare sprites, and it's just awful and stripped away anything that made the arcade game look like a bit of fun to play, and slowed it down and made it dull and boring and crap and horrible. And this was rubbish. I hated it. And I never played it back in the day. I thought this was some kind of weird Kung Fu knockoff thing at first. So I thought, but then I got confused. That's Shaolin's Road, isn't it?
Yeah.
But that comes later, I guess. But this was just awful. Arse. Legend of crap. Don't know. What did you think? Did you enjoy this thing?
No, I didn't enjoy it at all. I remembered it from before, so I knew that this was coming, and I knew it was god-awful. But I wanted to test, you know what? I like to think that we go back and we look at these things with fresh eyes. My eyes weren't fresh for very long.
Befouled they were, befouled.
You're right, it is based on an old Tato arcade. A Tato arcade, by the way, a potato arcade. I want to call them potato. That wasn't very good to begin with. So it's a conversion of a crap arcade. So one of the first times we've seen that, where normally you'd take an arcade and go, we think we should make that better. That's a good arcade. Let's do a version of that. This one they've gone, that arcade's crap. Let's just do an exact version of that. What could go wrong? So it's faithful to its crap arcade heritage, which is but it's also really shit. The shuffle flick 2 frame animation on the main character and all is awful. The sprites are badly drawn, blocky monstrosities. The fight controls are meaningless. Add to that weird jump mechanic, as you said, which means you mightily leap across the trees and bound across the whole landscape, such as it is. And you've just got this utterly dreadful game. $8.95's worth of dreadful game.
Yeah.
So this isn't just full price. This is a full price slap across the cheeks. The music in it is horrible. And I think it's Fred Gray as well. So, and no disrespect. Fred Gray's a good musician and he does some amazing stuff. Not this one, though. Awful. I don't know what planet there is where this game got passed through all the various QA systems to get released. And I suppose because it got 60-odd% in Zapped, which is baffling.
Utterly baffling.
Well, the only thing I can think of is that they've looked at the arcade and gone, you know what, at least it is like the arcade, and the arcade's like that. And so it's 60% worth of conversion to the arcade. But it doesn't belie the fact that this game is just rubbish and a full price, expensive rubbish. I was looking unlucky enough, really, but at least I hired this for £1 from J&M at the time. So I never paid the full whack for this. I think if I'd have paid $8.95, shelled out my what would have been hard-earned money in that time for this, I wouldn't have been very happy at all. I'd have been very angry. Nope. So this isn't, and I don't get it. I don't get what the arcade's about anyway. So no. This is just dreadful. And you know what? We're heading into a really dark period of arcade conversions here. And I'm finding more and more of them are just terrible. And this one's there's no excuse for this one being bad. There's loads. If we want to play really crappy games where you've got weird jumps, I'll go and play Camelot. At least it's kind of got pretty-ish graphics compared to this nonsense. But I mean, that's saying a lot. You know, I wouldn't rush back to the Camelot.
Just play something else.
Yeah, but I think
else.
The final comment is just dreadful. What a dreadful game that Legend of Kage is. And no, if only it would be better. Fred Bueller's got a real mixed bag, isn't it? So awful game.
Yeah, I mean, Paw Patrol is good, but we're running. It's like a nice topping on
there are others.
Pie of dung.
This will come to some, but that ain't one of them. Legend of Kage. Well, you can just make up your own Legend of Crap. I don't know. I think whatever you want to call it.
It is. Yeah, awfulness. All right, there you go. That's another crappy arcade conversion out of the way. Let's move to a cartoon conversion in our next one. So, Graham, are you going to enter the mystery machine, solve some crimes, hang out with Fred, Daphne, and Scrappy and all that, and Shaggy and Velma, and tell us about Scooby Doo?
So, firstly, you mentioned Scrappy Doo. Never say that to a Scooby Doo fan, let me tell you. I have a long-term friendship with Scooby Doo. I love Scooby Doo, right? I'm going to get this out of the way. As a cartoon show, some of the later iterations, the Scooby-Doo shows, the ones with Scrappy, all right, forget all that. But the original Scooby-Doo...
The films? How did you like the films?
Even the films are passable enough for what they are. They're all right. But let's just roll the clock back a bit. Scooby-Doo has become a bigger franchise, I think, over time in a weird way. But Scooby-Doo was always a big deal, I think. The Scooby-Doo show as it was, and Scooby-Doo and the Mystery Machine and all of that. The iconography of Scooby-Doo is set in stone. The characters are very well defined. You cannot go wrong with a game based on Scooby-Doo, or can you? Well, you can, because this really crappy thing turned up. So you've got Fred, Velma, Daphne, and Shaggy have been captured by the Mad Professor and kept in his castle. This is the premise. which is kind of not really a standard Scooby-Doo premise. Like, just right off the get-go, there's something wrong. Because generally speaking, in the Scooby-Doo stories, generally there's a mystery to solve. That's why they drive around in a mystery machine, and they're kind of little mini detectives. Famous Five type idea. So for them to have been captured and imprisoned is unusual, especially because Scooby's got to go and rescue them. Now, Scooby doesn't generally rescue. Scooby's actually a great big coward, and Shaggy's kind of a coward, and that's the fun. That's the fun part of Scooby-Doo. Watching them be cowards and kind of bumble their way and be stupid and land into silly situations, but for some crazy reason they always manage to find and do well, and then the Velma and the clever ones come along and they sort of figure out. That's kind of the modus operandi of Scooby-Doo, and always has been and should always be. Yes, it was interrupted by Scooby-Dum and Scrappy-Doo and things we don't want to talk about. So in this game, it breaks the rules of Scooby-Doo immediately. Right, so it's not about it's not the gang solving a mystery. It's Scooby trying to rescue his friends from a castle. Problem one: how is that going to work in the context of, again, because in the TV cartoons you've only ever watched Scooby be kind of, it's about him, but it's the characters in it that talk, not Scooby. And anyway, take a deep breath. So the graphics in this game are absolutely terrible. They're a weird mixture of high res and medium res, and only high res when you need to know it's Scooby and Co to make it look a bit like them. Medium res for the game, which makes it awful. There is some kind of blocky splat that's meant to look like Scooby-Doo. It's definitely a Scooby-Don't, whatever the hell that thing is. And you kind of work your way through these levels in a kind of platformer-ish style, avoiding these ghost things that kind of, what they've done is taken, as we've said before with some of these things, taken core elements of the Scooby-Doo things, the ghosts. Oh, Scooby's scared of ghosts, put him trying to work his way through amazing ghosts. No. Because that isn't what Scooby-Doo is about. You can only really get away. Scooby-Doo has to run away from characters in funny comedic situations and try and solve puzzles and mysteries. He doesn't just have to try and navigate a platform full of ghosts. This is crappy Impossible Mission territory with a crap Scooby-Doo at the helm, which makes this dreadful and annoying. Because it's annoying because this is a bad license of a cartoon that I believe should not have ever been made like this. And how do you get it wrong? Now, I've said this about other things that have done this. Danger Mouse is one I can think of, not to mention things like Knight Rider. If you have, and in this particular instance, again, we're dealing with Hanna-Barbera again, if you are dealing with Scooby-Doo, where you have a mystery machine, where you have fleshed out characters, where you have a genuine repetitive story arc that happens all the time, and even if you needed to use backgrounds over and over again, you could get away with it with this game because they're doing the damn cartoon. You don't need fidelity and you don't need those things. It just has to work like a Scooby-Doo cartoon. This doesn't, which I think makes this one of the worst games I've ever had the displeasure to play on the Commodore 64. It is terrible. It's terrible on every front. Graphics are bad, sounds bad, terrible rendition of the Scooby-Doo music, isn't about Scooby-Doo. This is a travesty, and it really, really f***ing annoyed me. So it can piss off. I hated it. I hate it, and I hate it because I really like Scooby-Doo, but I'm fed up, and we're going to come across it again and again. Wait till we get to He-Man, and wait till we get to Thundercats. If you think I'm enraged now, it's nothing compared to when we get there, but just don't play the Scooby-Doo game. It's terrible. It's a terrible, terrible, bad game. It's bad. So there you go. That's my take on it. But what do you think?
I loved it. No, it's garbage, isn't it? Yeah. But my first comment is, as you have so adequately explained and expounded on there, what has this got to do with Scooby-Doo? Because here was my point. At what point in any Scooby-Doo cartoon did Scooby wander around punching ghosts? Never. That's when. Because, and here's the thing, there are no ghosts in Scooby-Doo. Yeah, that's the whole point.
Yeah, it's people in masks and things.
There never is anything super. Yeah, there is never anything supernatural about Scooby-Doo.
No.
That's the point. It's always Old Man Peabody or Mr. DeWitt or somebody else behind the mask, isn't it? There's the ghoul or the monster. So it's always like, that's Velma. We knew it was and they pulled the mask off at the end.
Winters, that kind of thing.
Yeah, exactly. Yes, we know that's the point of Scooby-Doo. It's a mystery, as you said. Not this. There's never a real ghost. So having ghosts appear from doors for you to punch is stupid. So this is actually more, I thought this was just a crappy kung fu master.
I'd agree with that.
As you start a style, level punch a real ghost, it isn't. It makes no sense. It has nothing to do with the license, and it's just rubbish. But if the game was okay, I would go, all right, okay, but it's not, is it? It's crap. It's boring, dull, blocky arse is what I've written. The ghost, this was a really annoying thing, and you probably found this as well. So the ghosts have that annoying tendency just to appear from doors you're walking by and instantly kill you.
Oh, yeah. Awful.
So even on a gameplay perspective, this is dreadful. and annoying. You can only do one attack, which is that stupid punch.
And it's super
short.
short.
So all you do is just hold down the fire button until the ghosts walk into it. And then you carry on. The only way you lose a life is when they appear from from doors, but you can't flip around quick enough. It's just dreadful. There's no skill in this. There's no enjoyment to had, and it's a turd of a license. I like you, hated this because in my childhood, not so much these days, sort of thing, not post-Scrappy, but early on, I was a big Scooby Doo fan. It was a fun, really fun cartoon.
With really nice, fleshed out, funny characters.
Yeah, absolutely. They were funny. They was clever. It was progressive in certain ways, with Velma being the thing. It's nice. You just watched it and you thought, this is fun. You always knew what you were in for with the Scooby-Doo cartoon. You're in for 25 minutes of mystery and wondering what the ghost was and who it was. It was always the same. It was always based around a house or a amusement park or something or other. So you always knew what you're going to get. What you never got was Scooby wandering about boring levels punching ghosts.
Well, do you know what, right? And I'm just putting this out there. The instructions of how to make a Scooby-Doo game are in the damn song that they sing to the opening credits. We've got a mystery to come on, Scooby-Doo, I see you. It's the whole premise of what to do is there.
Yeah. I can't remember much of it. I think you played it a lot more than I did. But would something like this, the Scooby-Doo license, would it have been easy to put onto the Zach McCracken game?
Yeah.
Do you think?
Oh, absolutely. Yeah. I mean,
Or do you think Zach McCracken draws from Scooby-Doo?
I think you're right. But yeah, in the Maniac Mansions, then that Maniac Mansion that's a perfect engine for a Scooby-Doo game, isn't it?
It really is, isn't it? You have the 5 characters wandering around, finding stuff out. Maniac Mansion, Zach McCracken. Yeah. Maniac Mansion, actually, I think is the one I'm thinking of. But yeah, you just wander about, solving the mystery, working out puzzles. Yeah. This. Not like this.
No. It's such a shame. That's why I get so impassioned. It's such a shame because there's such good material there to make a game from that. And whoever they handed this to, and when they turned up with that, they must have thought, "Oh God, what have we done?" They must have thought.
Well, I think in the review, didn't they say this was like over a year in the making?
Yeah, and that's normally what that means is that it's absolute dog egg,
like Knight Rider.
Yeah. And I wonder. I mean, who was it who published this? I haven't written that down actually, but it was
Elite.
So, famously, Elite were known for their amazing hiring of people to do things. I think they just went for anybody. We'll discuss something really interesting about that later with another game as well, but we'll come to that.
Yeah, we will. Yeah. Scooby Don't, I think, Scooby Doo, Scooby Poo, Scooby Rubbish, whatever. Scooby Doo Doo.
Scoop of crap, yeah.
Duke of oil. Oh, what a shame. It could have been good. Could have really been good. Could have been a contender. Could have been a simple little bit of thought and Murder on, what was the other one? Murder on the Mississippi.
Yeah, that's what I mean.
These games exist at this point. It's not hard. It doesn't have to be a boring action game.
Nope.
Could do something interesting with the license.
Absolutely.
But it's quick and easy just to knock off a Kung Fu Master, sell it to people and make, for a tenner as well this was, wasn't it? A tenner. And there's only 4 levels.
And really short as well. You'd be able to finish this game in no time at all. Listen, Howard the Duck. That's a cozy 10 minutes.
If you're lucky. If you sit looking at the title screen.
Somewhere in the world bought those 2 games, Scooby Doo and Howard the Duck, and then they just found, they found him laid there rocking backwards and forwards, or her, just saying shh to themselves. Shh, it'll be okay. Shh. No, nightmare.
God, that's just a nightmare. Oh, imagine buying that, getting home. Oh, I've got Howard the Duck and Scooby Doo to play. I love those characters. They're ace. I love ducks and dogs.
Yeah, it's not working out well for these animal-based cartoon animation games, is it?
Well, I mean, no. The only game I think of what can put them together was Duck Hunt, innit? Where the dog pops up after you shoot him.
I'm just glad they didn't bring a lot of the other characters in. It didn't have Scrappy in, as far as I'm aware. It didn't have Scooby Dum and all the other Scooby friends, and because these, they didn't think that far ahead. Obviously, Anyway.
They didn't think anything. They just stuck graphics on a Kung Fu Master.
It didn't even look like Scooby did it. Sod off anyway, Scooby Doo.
Let's move along. We've got 1 game left. Let's go play something that's better.
Yes.
So our last game this section, before we move into film and TV, is we're back with our favourite American brothers. The Carvers are back. Roger and Bruce, they're back with another sports sim. So now we've got, they did golf, and now we've got bowling. We've got 10th Frame. And so this is... if you can tell from the title, this is a 10-pin bowling simulator, really. And yes, it's Roger and Bruce Carver again. So Access have now turned their, I'm going to say the leaderboard sort of engine, because it's quite similar in a lot of ways. I know golf and 10-pin bowling don't, but it looks similar-ish in a lot of ways. They've turned it to 10-pin bowling. If you like 10-pin bowling, you would probably like this. If you don't, you may actually get something from this, because like they did with Leaderboard, they've just done a quality job. It's probably not as good, but hey ho, we'll get to that in a moment. So this is presentationally very similar to Leaderboard. It looks very similar when it boots up. It has that same kind of minimalist opening title screen. It just asks you for some simple input. So there's two ways of playing this. You can play in a league or in open bowling. So the difference is, if you play in a league, you're basically playing a team. So you can play like 4 against 4 or 3 against 3, 2 against 2, whatever. If you play open bowling, it's just every man for themselves, and you can play up to 8 players can play this. So if you're not familiar with 10-pin bowling, it's quick. I don't know who isn't, but if you're not, if you're one of those few people who are not, 10-pin bowling, you bowl a ball down a lane and try and knock down 10 pins that are at the end, pins, skittles, whatever, and then you get 2 goes at this to knock as many as you can down. If you knock them all down in one go, you get a strike, and that score carries on to the next one. If you knock them all down in 2 goes, you get a spare, and again, that score carries on. It's very simple. It's a really simple game. It's very popular in America, and it's been very popular over here in the UK for many, 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 many years. And so the carvers have turned their attention to this, and so, you've got those 2 kind of modes, but essentially what it is it's 10-pin bowling. And if you've played Leaderboard, then you're gonna kind of pick this up quite quickly, because it's very similar. It has a very similar graphic style, minimalist. Instead of the well-animated golfer from Leaderboard, we have a well-animated bowler. So you have a series of lanes. The sort of screen is taken up with a series of lanes, but you just play on the middle one, and you can, before you start to bowl, you can aim where you want to aim. So you can move your bowler left or right, so wherever you want to start to bowl, but you've also got a secondary sort of aiming little reticule, little mark on the lane itself, which you push up, and then you can move that left or right, so you can aim it to the left or aim it to the right. You can come at an angle, whatever. Once you're happy with how you're aiming it, you hold down the fire button, which initiates the bowl. When it gets towards the top, you let go for the speed, and you need to be within the brackets. You'll see the little brackets at the top on the speed chart. You let it go higher towards the top, the faster the bowl will go. Once you let go, it starts to come down on the other side of the display, this little sort of bar thing. And down at the bottom, there's this hook meter, which is essentially how much you spin it in. So you want to press the button when it goes somewhere in the middle of that to try and control the hook, which will bend the ball in. Off it goes. The ball flings down the lane, knocks pins over. They bounce around. You may get a strike. You may not. Repeat. That's bowling. This is a very, very competent bowling simulator. So that's it. If you played Leaderboard, you played this, you're going to sort of get on with it. The visuals, they're very nice for what they are. They're spare, no pun intended. Like Leaderboard was, the main visual flair is the animation of the bowler sort of thing, and it's very nice. The pins bounce around. There's a nice touch with the actual lane, because the whole sort of bowling alley design is quite nice, but when there's a display at the top of like how many pins you've got left, so if you've got 7 left, then there's 7 lit up in the pattern that you've got left on top of the lane itself, so it kind of tells you where they are if you can't quite make it out. The physics I thought was pretty decent on the pins, certainly better than that crap awful pub games Skittles game, and it's just really good. I would say though, there is a caveat here sort of thing, in the fact that I don't think that 10-pin bowling in this representation has the same appeal that Leaderboard had. Maybe not for me, but by its very nature, there's something repetitive about bowling, because it's the same every time, pretty much. You're just lobbing at 10 pins, whereas golf is slightly different. You've got 18 holes, so each hole is different, requires a different approach. This is kind of the same every time. And with that, what I think this game is lacking is atmosphere. Bowling, especially in a league or a competition, or if you go down any bowling alley, it's a noisy sport, with lots of noise coming from other lanes being used, with pins being knocked down, with people talking, with music. There's an atmosphere when you go down to a bowling alley and sort of thing. And even if you watch competition bowling, there's noise, there's people cheering, there's all that. There's none of that here, and it's very sterile. And while that works for golf, because golf is a nice, relaxing walk around, and you're in the open and everything like that works for golf, and so that worked for Leaderboard. This, though, just feels a little bit empty, a little bit quiet, and a little bit, like I said, sterile. It's good. It's the best bowling game I think that comes out on the C64 by a country mile. I don't know if there's any others. And it's got all that carver polish and addictiveness, and it is good fun. It's just not as good as Leaderboard, but as Leaderboard was our game of last year, that's damning with high praise. Sorry, it's still very good. It's just not quite as addictive, and it's not quite as involving, I found, as Leaderboard. It's still good, but it's a strange one, and I think I don't know whether the carvers just needed to sort of put some oomph and atmosphere into it, and then it would have been a bit more better. I don't know what it's lacking, but that was how I felt about it. Did you enjoy it? Did you like it? What did you think?
It's a bowling game, so it was dull. I don't think it's as good as leaderboard. It's all presentation, computer programming, all that stuff is great, and it plays.
Yes.
And you can play a great game of bowling on it. There's no doubt about that. You can play 8 players in different combinations and like you say leagues and all of that. So all of that's great. So all the captures the bowling. It's a bit boring, and I think like you say, and it's because it's just not particularly. I think it has none of the exciting bits in addition to this, like you say. So it is just right down to the bowling part, which is okay. It's just a bit quiet and a bit slow. I know you can adjust the audio according to the instructions and stuff, but it's at least you can according to the instructions. But it's a good game of its type, and it just kind of set the benchmark for this kind of thing. So it's a great bowling simulator, as Leaderboard was a great golf simulator. But for me, when you go bowling, it's about putting in the funny names, them bad kind of tacky animations that pop up and do all of that. You probably don't get them in like proper leagues and stuff like that. But that's part of it, and because it doesn't have any of that, it just feels like it's a bit devoid of the fun of bowling. And I think it's just right down to bowling. And it's just saying, it's like saying to someone, let's go bowling, and they go, that's great. And then when you get there, there's no music, there's no lights, there's no drinks, there's no animations. It's just you bowling a ball. And it would be, and if you did that, I imagine it would probably be, it loses its way. And like you say, time, go after go. You've got to like bowling. But for what it is, it does it very well. I just think I don't particularly think bowling is a very good game to do a game of. But if you're going to do it like that. So. Yeah,
it needed the surroundings, didn't it? Other people bowling, other people bowling, noise, music, things. I just don't think the carvers are interested in that. They're more of a, like you said, they want the simulation-y aspect-y.
Yeah, and they did that great. That part is fine, but it just doesn't make for a very interesting game long term.
No, well, like I said, it works for golf because that is golf. Yeah, but it doesn't work.
You can choose different
bowling.
clubs, and you can do that. All you really can do here is alter your sort of strength of throw and spin and that sort of stuff. And I get that, and it's quite clever the way they do that, but it's not really that much fun after all of that. After a few goes, you're kind of like, it's a bit boring.
Yeah, that's what I thought. Yeah. More people. I mean, you may get the environment, if you played with a few friends and stuff, then you may get that bit of oomph, but eventually you're just going to be like,
I don't think you would, because it's just, even if you get a strike in that, it doesn't feel like a great celebration. It's like, strike. Like,
yes.
Okay. I thought it'd be a bit like a da-da-da-da-da or something like that, but no.
Yeah, exactly. Yes, that's what you. That's what it's all missing. It's missing the over the topness. It's an over the top sport, Yeah. I mean, they made a funny film out of it, didn't they? Was it Kingpin?
Kingpin, yeah, absolutely, yeah. Who can forget that?
That's crazy. It's what it is. Anyway,
and if you actually ever watched bowling on TV, if you ever watched like pro bowling, I mean, it's not like, if I'm no professional bowler, I'm not even a good bowler. In fact, I wouldn't even profess to be anything. But when you're watching those do it, it's incredible to watch the way they just seem to do it. They seem to bowl it slow, and it suddenly speeds up and slows down and turns, and it's amazing to watch how they do it. But that is none of that is in this game, which is kind of the bit that's missing. So
there we go. Anyway, there we go. So that's our last game for this section, 10th frame. We've looked at a lot. I'll round them up, though, at the end of this episode. So without further ado, let's hear from our cool sponsor, and then we'll move into film and TV for February 1987. So, stay with us.
Tasty sandwiches to our amazing sponsor, DavidHearnWriter.com, where you'll find bargain books, ebooks, and audiobooks. I think we should hear a sample from his brilliant audiobook, Paddy Go Easy, What Happens When You Hit and Run, narrated by the man himself, David Hearn.
The super shook his head. Are you threatening me? Paddy bit off more of the burger. Maybe, he said between chews. What if I am? The super walked away in disgust. A thin man in his mid-40s with glasses, a Hawaiian shirt and cargoes slid over to him. Watch your back, buddy. The super has it in for you. Don't give him any more ammo. Oh, he can go and get nicked, Paddy said with a grin. Don't worry, Lester. I know how to deal with dickheads. Lester smiled a toothy grin. Well, buddy, you get back to your net browsing. I'll look after the router logs so they can't ping you. Paddy hit Alt-Tab on the keyboard and looked up another YouTube video of funny cats. This one played the piano. Gold.
Boom shakalaka. Fantastic as always. Visit davidhearnwriter.com to find out more.
All right, good. We're back. and we're going to be looking at film and TV for February 1987. So what was going on? All kinds of stuff, as per normal. The first of which was on the 5th of February, when Princess Anne appeared on Sports Quiz, A Question of Sport. Oh, the excitement when the royal family deigned to be part of the hoi polloi and join us on the join us down in our realm, come down from there.
Did you watch A Question of Sport?
Their clown. Yes. Yeah, my brother was a big fan, so I had no choice. It's either that or, probably go upstairs and play my Commodore 64, but I kind of watched it. It was all right with, because it was Emlyn Hughes, wasn't it? Because it says, this was a matter of weeks after team captain Emlyn Hughes had famously mistook a picture of her on a horse for the jockey John Reed. So this was the time of Emlyn Hughes and Bill Beaumont.
Don't even know who they are.
Well, Emlyn Hughes was the former captain of Liverpool.
Right.
He was centre half for Liverpool, and Bill Beaumont was the former England rugby captain.
I only remember Emlyn Hughes because he was on that weird Box Clever game where it featured an Amiga, but I can't remember.
Do you not remember Emlyn Hughes' soccer?
No, I didn't partake in anything to do with him.
It's a C64 game. It looks like international soccer.
No, I appreciate it. I just said I don't have anything to do with him. Those wounds run pretty deep.
Well, the interesting thing here, though, is that this episode gained a record audience of 19 million viewers.
It's just crazy, those numbers. I mean, I just don't... I mean, Question of Sport must have been hugely popular. Probably. It isn't really now, is it? Still running.
It is still running. Well, I think it was David Coleman was the host at the time.
Me, but it's kind of superseded now by things like League of Their Own and stuff like that, I think, but it's still going.
Yeah, it is. I mean, this... As you've noted here, shit the bed, but it's a third of the country, 19 million people at that point.
It's crazy for a sports quiz show, that.
Yeah, how we were more into, because it's some royalty has deigned to join us.
Yeah, which is a pretty big deal. I mean, don't get me wrong, it's crazy that, because Princess Anne was famous horse rider, right? I think, essentially.
Yeah, she did. Did she do dressage or whatever?
Yeah,
or was she?
I think she was in the Olympics.
Or was it show jumping? It was the show jumping which she did, wasn't it? Yes.
I think it's all horse related. It's objet equestrienne, horse things.
Sorry, what? I'm sorry. What?
Objet equestrienne, horse things.
Oh yeah, that's how you speak French.
That's not French.
What is it then?
It's no language. Just made it up. Italian. Equestrione is Italian.
I do equestrion duissimo.
That's what he says in Hudson Hawk, actually. He says, objet equestrione, horse things. That's what it is.
Okay, I'll take your word for it.
Don't trust horses. Don't like them. Dangerous at both ends and crafty in the middle.
Where'd you get that? I've read that before. Who said
Sherlock
that?
Holmes. Sherlock Holmes says that.
Bloody Sherlock Holmes.
Bloody Sherlock Holmes. What was that, Moriarty?
Comes along, foiling my plans.
Foiling my horse-related plans.
Absolutely.
Knocking down my show jumps and making all of my horses poorly with his crazy...
With his opium-addled...
Worrying my horses.
Face, leading them to water, making them drink.
Damn him.
I like them thirsty. Why would Moriarty want thirsty horses?
Well,
actually, we don't
sounds
know.
Like a Morrissey album.
Well, it's that. Well, we never know why Moriarty would want thirsty horses because that's his, his devilish designs. We're not clever enough to see them. No. By foiling him, by making the horses unthirsty, Sherlock Holmes foils his plans again.
Was that a song by the Rolling Stones? That's
I don't know.
It's Wild Horses.
It's the lesser known Conan Doyle book, Sherlock Holmes and the Case of the Thirsty Horses.
Thirsty horses.
Isn't that thingy? Isn't that Neil Young?
Oh, I don't know. He was a thirsty horse. I think he's a singer, isn't he? Songwriter, famous.
He is, but didn't he do? Oh, that's Crazy Horses. Crazy Horse.
Oh, exactly. That's my horse impression for you.
Hudson Horse.
Weird.
16th of February, LA Law started.
LA Law. Did you like LA Law?
I didn't. Again, my brother did. He just watched all these things.
Yeah, I think this is
just my stock answer.
So nobody in my family watched LA Law, and I didn't really.
Perseus in it, didn't it?
Yeah, Harry Hamlin's in it. Yeah, and it's got a famous cast. I mean, I liked the UK equivalent, Crown Court.
I did like Crown Court. Yeah. So that was always on in an afternoon, wasn't it?
Yeah, it was on about 1 o'clock at 1 o'clock in the afternoon sometimes.
Yeah.
For a while. I'm not sure when that ran, but LA Law was it was most UK people's experience of an actual courtroom, because the UK, you don't, outside of Crown Court, they didn't televise anything like that in the UK. Still don't, really. So, no. But of course in the US, televised court was very happening it was already happening by then. And so LA Law was the first window into the sort of legal system, and everyone started, objection and things like that, and all those kind of motifs that we take for granted. And now we watch all of these American melodramas, and they have courtroom dramas, and take it to the extent of JFK and things like that. And we have all of that information about how the US courtroom works, but we know so little about how our own courtrooms work. It's quite amazing, really.
It's because we don wigs and things, and
but it's just mysteries abound.
Say Milud a lot.
Yeah, Milud, mysteries abound. Ours is kind of as a law in the law courts or the Crown Court. And we've got. Can you imagine because we've got Crown Court, which is where all the big cases are held, obviously. But then there's Magistrates Court. Can you imagine if there was an LA Law version of Magistrates Court? How dull would that be? It just. But so LA Law had the big cases, didn't it? Famous big, lawsuits and big law firms, and this idea of that law firming is just alien to anyone.
Well, it was more of a. It was like a. I think because it evolved because it wasn't obviously it's not the first lawyer courtroom based show that the US had, because obviously you had things like you had all your Quincy's and your Petrocellis and your
Quincy one about law courts. It was about
but he was usually in court solving something. He was a coroner. He was
Quincy, right?
Yeah, he's in court loads.
It was not.
He goes and gives testimony
loads.
He is solving stuff, and then he goes to court and gives testimony. But Petrocelli, he's a lawyer. Ironside, he's a lawyer.
I thought he was a detective.
Who is Ironside?
Yeah.
He was in court a lot. Who's the other guy then? Perry Mason. There you go.
I didn't watch a lot of these, I have to say.
But what I'm saying is that they were sort of episodic. It was that episodic nature where it was a crime a week. Your Columbos, you're all those sort of things. So your crime week. Yeah. Whereas LA Law brought in that era of that ongoing story. So this was building off things like Hill Street Blues.
Yes,
and sort of building from that. That's what I mean. So it was that same kind of characters, not just Quincy, Sam, and whoever, and Petrocelli and his wife, and then different characters, and maybe the cop would be the same, or the Rockford Files, where he's him and his dad, and those kind of episodic things. It was that notion of being sort of more soap driven, but being a bit more high class than soaps. And LA Law was obviously, I think, I don't know if it's the first, but it probably, I think in my memory, it's the first one to do that in a court, because it would lead to things like Ally McBeal and all things like that, wouldn't it?
Yeah.
So. But as Lionel Hutt said, it's very fake. I mean, look at that. He's wearing a belt.
Well, exactly. And obviously, very popular with the people on Omicron Persei 8 or whatever it is. Don't make sure they don't stop broadcasting it. No, my auntie was very into these American sort of, all of those ones. So from LA Law and all the medical ones, I can't even what they were called now, but there's also Hill Street Blues, then... all of those, but all of those that predated that, there was loads of them, because obviously the syndicated TV show started to flood into the UK because they were all normally filling sort of later night slots, so 10 o'clock or maybe late evening, later night, so moonlighting and all these syndicate shows, because syndicate shows hadn't happened. This was syndicated TV was kind of new for us. So we started getting these massive imports en masse because they were cheap. It's much cheaper to buy this content than it was to produce it. And so that's why, and it started to change the way TV, because up to then, we'd produced and made most of our own TV shows. Hence the reason why they look like they did. So when we started to buy these TV shows in, the production values are so expensive that it started to make our own TV shows look naff. Hence the reason you got more of them. And then I think actually what it did is it made us pull our productive socks up in the UK in terms of television production, and some of the production values started to get upped, try and match the quality that was coming out of the US and other countries. Because, like I said, up to this point, Crown Court existed, and then suddenly LA Law comes along with these glamorous looking people and fancy storylines, and it made all those gentlemen, white guys in wigs sat in courtrooms talking weirdly to each other. Seems somewhat weird, and I bet the court cases in that are nothing. LA Law, gun-toting murderers, serial killers, and all that. Probably a sheep worrier in bloody Crown Court.
It made us look quaint, didn't it? It's like
I put it to you, sir, that on the 30th of May you did indeed entertain Molly the sheep.
Yes, that could quite possibly be a case on Crown Court. I think that was season 3.
Do you know what I remember most about Crown Court is the coughing? Because I always remember people go, as I said, my lord, and just lots of coughing. That seems to be like the way you act in the Crown Court. They don't do that in LA Law. There isn't cough acting. There's not a lot of that.
Well, it's when they're trying to remember the lines, probably.
Yeah, exactly. They are soap operas, aren't they, essentially? Law-based soap operas, this one. And like you said, there was a stream of them that came around, many of which we didn't get. So. Good, though.
And then that would then become your you lead into things like your X-Files, and then then you get the big one, I think, which changed everything, was Murder One.
Do you know, I've never seen
Murder One and Twin Peaks, I think, were the pair that
I thought he was going to say Murder, She Wrote.
Well, Murder, She Wrote changed many things.
What about that one with Thingy?
My Trousers.
What's the one with what's the famous detective series out of the US? The most famous one of all, one with
Columbo.
Yeah. I mean, goodness me. Columbo.
Well, but he's well early. He's 19. Spielberg directed one of his early episodes, 1970. I think.
That doesn't surprise me. I mean, but we had, they had that. Meanwhile, on British TV, Tales of the Unexpected, where a man eats so much bee honey that he turns into a bee. I'm going to eat some royal jelly.
It's Tales of the Totally Expected. Well, you named it wrong.
No, but do you know what? You might think I'm making that up. That is a genuine episode of Tales of the Unexpected.
I know it was, yeah.
So much royal jelly, he actually fed it to a baby and he turned it into a bee.
He did. Thingy was better though. Let's face it, armchair thriller. If only for the scary opening credits.
Well, Hammer House of Horror,
where the shadow sat down.
Yeah, that's true.
Hammer House of Horror is good. Hammer House of Mystery and Suspense as well.
Less so. Was not as good. But Hammer House of Horror's got some amazing episodes. You should revisit them. If I was you, go and revisit them.
Stop telling me to revisit things. Because every time honestly, I do, I regret. I dislike you.
There's some really, really good episodes of the Hammer House of Horror.
All I remember is the Diana Dawes one, the werewolf one.
Yeah, see, everyone remembers that one, but go and watch some of the others. There's some really good ones. One with Peter Cushing is brilliant.
I watched one recently and it was crap.
Oh dear.
Sorry, it just was. I put it to you, my lord, that the Hammer House of Horror was terrible. Well, the episode aired on the 3rd of April, 1984, was in fact dog egg.
I present these papers. I call for a recess of at least 2 or 3 days so Adrian can rewatch the whole series.
Recess agreed.
Court is adjourned.
I banged me gavel. Ooh.
Ever so slightly. No, I waggled me wig.
Ooh, he did.
Ever so slightly. It was a stunning effect. If it looks good killing, it'd do 40 years.
Oh.
Anyway.
Oh, dear. Right. 21st of February. I love this. The description of this is amazing. Considered, put with the picture you put up, and we're going to have to put this picture somewhere. An apparently inebriated Oliver Reed appears on the ITV chat show Aspel and Company, where he stumbles and lurches around the set.
Yeah.
This picture, he looks like an angry ape.
He does. I would say he's less apparently inebriated and more actually inebriated.
Yeah. I love the description. Apparently, if they're not sure what the hell is, because if they're not sure, what's he like when he is definitely inebriated?
Well, in that picture, he's not looking good, is it?
It's not. So the picture looking at it, we're going to have to put this out somewhere.
Just
I'll have to
put it in the show notes or something.
But I don't think pictures show up. We might have to link it. We'll put it on the website. We'll put it on the website so you can see it. But it's just his mouth. Yeah, he looks like
he's the way to do it.
He's urging for a fight or something, isn't he? As you put here, he's full on opening of 2001: A Space Odyssey.
Yeah, he has. He's gone full ape. And it honestly looks like he's just about to pick up the bone in 2001 and start smashing those skulls with it, and then hurl it high into the air, and it'll fall down as a spaceship.
Oh, God bless Oliver Reed. He was a
character, all right, that one.
Because he was also it wasn't. Look, but let's face it, this wasn't the only time he appeared drunk on our TV screen. There was that After Dark, that late night Channel 4 thing that he appeared on.
He was absolutely immortal on that one. In fact, it's probably easy to pick out the times when he was drunk than when he was sober.
Yeah, there was that other one. He did that daytime one, and he was hammered in the middle of the afternoon.
Yes,
Pebble Mill, I think. Was it Pebble Mill?
Yeah, Pebble Mill. Yeah, famously was absolutely smashed on that as well. And he just, he's good in that.
Oh, don't get me wrong. He's in some great films.
Gladiator. He's good in Gladiator.
He's great in Gladiator. Yeah, he's in some really good films.
Died during the making of Gladiator, didn't he? As well, sadly.
He did. Yeah.
Proximo plays Proximo, doesn't he?
Yeah. Someone gave him the thumbs down, and that was that.
That was it. He stopped drinking by then, because if he'd gone full ape during that film, that would have been weird.
That would have been weird. Would have been put down by Maximo. Yeah, Maximo. No, Maximo's a bloody game. Anyway, from Oliver Reed going full ape. 24th of February, the sitcom Hardwick House which was set in a dysfunctional comprehensive school, makes its debut on ITV.
Not for long.
Unfortunately, the series is badly received by critics and viewers, and it's abruptly cancelled after just 2 episodes. How bad was it?
Well, let me just check out this premise, and let me ask you what's wrong with this premise. So this is true. The series is set in a large comprehensive school of the title, the staff of which are as dysfunctional as the pupils. One teacher is a multiple murderer, while the deputy headmaster lusts after male pupils. One teacher, Moose Magnuson, is on an extended exchange placement because his own school in Iceland refuses to have him back. So what could go wrong with when you've got a lustful
pederast,
pederast,
deputy headmaster,
a lustful
Christ.
pederast and a multiple murderer. So that's the starting point, right?
It's like the alternative Rent-A-Ghost.
Strange thing is, and it was the rest of the series was never transmitted, and it's gone. It's nowhere to be found. At least I couldn't find it.
And with good cause, by the sounds of it.
Absolutely. I mean, this has got to be up there with Heil, Honey, I'm Home and other TV-related stupidity. So, no.
Although I would like to be called Moose.
Yeah. Moose Magnuson. It wasn't somebody Magnuson the guy that did that dun, 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 dun.
Yeah,
sure
it was Magnus Magnuson.
Magnus Magnuson. So I wonder if that Moose must be his brother, because that can't be coincident. Moose and Magnuson. That's really hard to say, that is.
It's the son of Magnus, isn't it?
Moose, where's Magnus?
I don't know. He's out playing with elk.
He's listening to madness. Moose and Magnus Magnuson listening to madness.
Well, he's gone out with
elk.
Gnu.
He's gone out with elk Magnuson.
Elk and Gnu.
Yes,
anyway. The deer triplets.
Anyway, yeah, not a good... I briefly remember the TV adverts with Roy Kinnear before that show. I never watched it, but I do remember them because they really gave it some TV licks at the time as this big sitcom. Yeah, it was this really big, because Roy Kinnear was quite a famous TV film actor at the time. So to have him in it was kind of, look at this. It's crazy. It's dysfunctional. Oh my God, look at the wackiness of this. And everyone was like, that's just awful. Too far, I say.
Yeah.
Yeah, not good.
Yeah. Not good at all. Right, 27th of February, the BBC and independent television begin a week of programming aimed at educating people about the AIDS virus. Highlights include AIDS, The Fact on BBC One, a short programme of facts and figures covering frequently asked questions about the disease, and First AIDS, an ITV comedy sketch programme. Don't sound good. Produced by London Weekend Television, featuring Mike Smith, Jonathan Ross and Emma Freud.
Yeah.
None of that sounds good.
Well,
that last
to be
half.
fair, no, because... clearly, the BBC were kind of taking it seriously and have taken that BBC Reithian idea of, let's educate people about this terrible virus that's killing people around the world.
Yeah.
ITV, let's make a comedy sketch show about it. Make it a bit light-hearted, so people are dying of it. Jonathan Ross can make anything funny. No, he can't.
Yep.
He really can't.
No. Yeah. AIDS was an unpleasant thing in the 80s.
Yeah, it was. They didn't understand a lot of... I mean, at this point, it's gone from being something that you'd heard about and there was all sorts of silly rumours to now there was a real thing about educating people about safe sex and that whole agenda. And in actuality, though they did this, they did it a bit heavy-handed and it was all a bit felt a bit nanny state, and the TV programmes they did actually do the right thing, and awareness was raised over time in the right way, and then it meant that the understanding of that terrible disease was finally positioned for the disease that it was instead of the outcomes for the various peoples that it affected at the time, until, of course, it became something which was far more understood. But at this particular time, as you say, because it'd gone from scaremongering and scare tactics through to trying to educate and inform people about this, and the good outcomes of this were that people did start to think about using condoms and safe sex, and that these things were conversations that started to happen even in jokey ways, and and all that kind of thing, and it worked its way through into a much better situation for everybody. So at least it was a starting point. But I remember more of the BBC stuff. I don't remember tuning into a comedy sketch show about AIDS. I'm not sure anyone would be laughing about that. And I think nowadays, can you imagine if they did let's do a comedy sketch show about the Omicron variant? Oh, it'd be hilarious. I don't think people are going to see the funny side. Jonathan Ross can make anything funny.
Who would they have as well? Because it would be what's his face. It would be the Irish guy who's like on BBC does the talk show.
Well, it'd be one of the 10 people that have been doing TV shows for the last 2 years, because whenever I turn on the TV and watch any kind of panel show, it's the same 8 people.
What's his name? He does the chat show on BBC One. It's the Irish guy with a beard. What's his bloody name?
Graham Norton.
No, he's not. Graham Norton, that's it.
Yeah.
So it'd be Graham Norton, it'd be the other one, the one with the teeth, Alan Carr.
Yeah.
It'd be him, and probably and Jimmy Nail. Not Jimmy Nail. Jimmy Carr. Is it Alan Carr and Jimmy Carr? They got the same name. Am I thinking of the right names here?
No, there is Jimmy Carr and there is Alan Carr, but they're two different people.
I know they're two different people, but
Alan Carr's the one with the teeth, and Jimmy Carr's the one that goes
with the hair. Now he's got new hair, hasn't he?
Plastic face, yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, and avoidance of tax.
Yes, and tact. Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. So it'd be probably those three doing it.
Yeah.
So
still wouldn't be any good.
No, it probably wouldn't. So there we go. That's your TV. Right, let's go into films. 2nd of Feb, Macaroni.
Yeah, the Jack Lemmon comedy.
Jack Lemmon, yeah. Don't act like you know it.
I watched Macaroni. It was nominated for an Oscar for the best foreign film, but never won it. And in fact, it got taken away from the nominations.
Well, if it never won it, I don't care.
Well, it wasn't that it never.
I'm only here for the winners.
No, but it wasn't that it never won. It was never was. It was entered and then it got removed from the Academy list for some reason. So I'm not sure why, but it did. So some weird reason. Anyway,
interesting.
Anyway, it's not a great film.
No. 13th of February is The Fly. There we go. So David Cronenberg's remake of the 1950s, I think. It was the original 1950s, The Fly. 1950s version of The Fly. And this is quite the departure. So basically what The Thing did for The Thing from Another Planet, The Thing from Another World, whatever.
To some extent, yeah.
This is The Fly. This is that, isn't it, really? So this is Jeff Goldblum, Gina Davis, and is proper gross. This is an incredible horror film. And I've noted here, and this is true actually, this is the first 18 rated film I ever saw at the cinema.
Wow, okay. Which
is kind of crazy, which just shows you how, because I'll tell you the story. I was at school, we were in the afternoon, and me and a friend, it wasn't. We were doing chemistry at the time, and we said, "Oh, should we go to the cinema?" We said, "Oh, the Fly's on," and we were like, "It's an 18." So we'll go see if we can get in. So we went down to the cinema in Freeman Street in Grimsby, and we stood outside in our school gear. And this is an 18 rated film, and the guy came out, and it wasn't the normal guy; it was the taller guy, the taller, chunkier guy. Don't know if you remember him. He was at the Freeman Street cinema. He came out. He went. You're right, lads. You waiting for something? And we went, "Oh, well, we're waiting for The Fly." And he looked at us and he went, "Hang on." Walked back in and then came out with they had the stands, the 1, 2, and 3 stand.
Yeah.
He put the 3 stand in front of us. He went, "Oh, I'll be open in 20 minutes." We were like 2 school kids in school gear. We hadn't even got changed. And he just went, yeah, whatever. Be open in 20 minutes. So we kind of wandered in and watched The Fly and had our brains blown by how gory it was.
Yeah, very violent.
Crazy, but it's brilliant, and I love The Fly. I think it's a great film. I think it's indelibly left a mark on me from watching that one. But I do love it. Jeff Goldblum's performance is amazing.
Yeah,
really good. And by the end, when it's just Brundle Fly and everything, it's just the puking and the melting and the body parts and the.
Oh, it's gross.
Good Lord.
Absolutely gross. I think I would go as far as to say, along with Videodrome, it's David Cronenberg's one of his best films.
Oh, absolutely,
and
yes.
Certainly, I think the most, outside of Japanese cinema, it's one of the most gross body horror movies of all time. Really, truly. But now, you see, I like the source material. Because as much as it's silly,
the original,
with Vincent Price and the original. The source material is brilliant. It's a really good idea for a film where science going wrong and a scientist has to deal with the outcome. And obviously in the original version, it's nothing like the violent depiction of the transformation of all of his, when he's been merged with the Fly and everything else. And you don't get that kind of silly "help me" bit at the end. But the source material of that idea, it's just waiting for David Cronenberg really to come along and go, I know what we can do with that. And good God, does he turn up the goods. I mean, this gross out part after gross. This film goes from gross to gross to, oh my God, to really? You're going to merge him with that? To just the point where he's just a sluggish mass with an arm, and he just points the shotgun in his head, and boom. Yeah, it's just. Well,
don't forget, just before then, you've had the hand melt and the foot melt, and
So I mean,
the puking,
because he tries to merge himself with the woman, doesn't he? But she famously gets out, breaks the machine, but it still merges. Still goes ahead, and he ends up merges with the machine and the Fly and the bits and everything, and he just crawls out as that slug thing at the end. It's like, goodness me, it is. Really, really, really good though. It's definitely worth watching. The sequels that came after it, less so. But this is a great performance. It's rather even Gina Davis is good in that. Yeah,
really, really good soundtrack as well. I remember that end music is excellent for that whole sequence. It's all really emotional, powerful, and it works perfectly well. It's brilliant.
She's good. Was she married to him at that point as well? She married to...
I don't
Because
know.
I know they ended
maybe.
up getting married, didn't they? Gina Davis and...
Did they?
Yeah, and Seth.
I don't know. I thought she married
Brundle.
Reddy Harlan, didn't she?
At some point, but she was definitely married to him in that film at one point.
Oh, maybe. At one point. Maybe.
Yeah.
Who knows?
Could have been before he was a flyer afterwards, maybe before. Cause,
I'm hoping before.
yeah, but there is some great moments. And of course, the famous lines in there, isn't there? Be afraid, be very afraid. We take these things for granted now, but...
Yeah. The bit where he pukes on the donut.
Yeah, just
Oh, sorry.
and where he snaps the guy's hand. I mean, ugh.
Yeah. Just where he pukes on the donut. Oh, sorry, that's disgusting. It's like,
Yeah, well, his transformation is something of epic proportions, and half of the sounds and samples of that have been used in unimaginable amount of trance tracks.
Yeah.
I mean, there's one that takes an entire section of that sequence where he's talking about the transformation sequence and talking about that, and puts that into a trance track.
Clever physical effects as well when he's like getting to thinking, like starts climbing on the ceiling and stuff. And
it's a good film. It's just gross. Prepare yourself for that film because it goes to dark
if you're going to watch
places.
it. Yeah, very dark. Very dark.
Yep.
Not so dark, though. On the 20th of February, another classic, really. Let's face it, Ferris Bueller's Day Off.
It is a classic, Ferris Bueller's Day Off.
It really is in every way, and still stands up to this day because it doesn't sort of draw on those normal teen tropes that John Hughes would use in those periods. I mean, it's kind of almost like he'd go to this thingy, wouldn't he? I think is his next one. She's having a baby. He's having a bit of a change, isn't he? So he's doing different things, and this is, although it's a teen film, it is not generally the same kind of thing. It's about dealing with other stuff, and it's just a great, it's a great comedy. It's quite touching. Cameron's, a really underrated character throughout it.
Yep.
The relationship, there's some amazing great moments in it. The car with the Star Wars theme tune and everything.
Yeah.
The boring teacher, which has become such a meme. Bueller.
Yeah.
Bueller. There's just so much in Ferris Bueller's Day Off. It's just amazing. There's the sequence at the end where he's trying to run back to his house.
Yeah.
And his sister. It's just a great film.
Well, yeah, it is. I mean, it's just John Hughes knowing how to write, but getting the right people. I mean, the characters in this, the actors that play them, Matthew Broderick, I forget the guy that plays the other guy in it. I'm not so great with it, but I remember the actual casting choices, right down to his sister. I think that's the woman that plays Baby in Dirty Dancing, isn't it?
It is, yes.
So, but right down to those casting choices, it just makes this film really interesting, and it's really of its time, really great soundtrack, and if you could be bothered, there's a lockdown reunited YouTube channel where I forget the name of. There's like a guy who gets all the actors from these films back together in a Zoom, and they just chat to each other. And one of those films where he gets all the actors, I mean all the original actors back together, is Ferris Bueller's Day Off, including the guy that goes Bueller and all the rest of it. So I would go and check that out on YouTube. He's done quite a few. He did that, and he's done Back to the Future and quite a few others as well, where he's got the original cast members all back. Yeah. So forget what his name is. The guy, I want to say Josh Gad, but it's the guy that does the voice of that snowman in Frozen, whoever his name is. He does it.
Olaf.
Yeah, Olaf, but the guy that does his voice. I can't remember his name. But
Olaf.
Olaf. Anyway,
Olaf is real.
Classic John Hughes. Well, he was on a fire at this point. John Hughes could do no wrong.
Yes, he was. The 80s were his, weren't they? Let's face it. Same day, if you didn't fancy going to see Ferris Bueller's Day Off, you could go see Castaway.
Could.
So is this the Oliver Reed one, isn't it?
Yes, it's definitely not the Wilson one. So yeah.
It's Oliver Reed and Amanda
Donoghue.
Amanda Seyfried. Is it Amanda Donoghue?
I don't know.
Amanda Donoghue, yes. So they get basically cast away on an island, don't they? And they just
walk around naked a lot.
Yeah, boobs and sex, I think.
Yeah, Nicholas Roeg at the helm. Roeg.
He said Rogue, I think.
Nicholas Roeg, yeah. So yeah. It's not one of my favourite films of his. I know Nicholas Roeg did Don't Look Now. He also did. Did he do The Man Who Fell to Earth as well? Yes, he did. He did indeed, and Performance, of course.
Yeah, the Mick Jagger one.
Yeah.
Oh, don't make me think of Mick Jagger. I'll think of the start of that bloody video again.
Well, there's an interesting thing there, of course, is that he also directed the AIDS adverts. You remember the AIDS iceberg and the big monolith with the "Don't Die of Ignorance"? They were directed by Nicholas Roeg.
Oh.
And also, he directed the original version of The Witches, which is, I think, arguably the better version of the two, but people have their views on that. Mm-hmm. And, of course, he is best mates with Donald Demon Seed Cammell as well, who obviously directed Demon Seed. Now, what a strange pairing they are, because Donald, I nearly called him Donald Seed then. Donald Cammell, horrible. Donald Cammell was a bit of an oddbod as well, so they're all kind of odd together, these guys.
Yeah, they're a strange bunch of directors. Probably not as strange as our next one. Ken Russell's The Gothic came out on 27th of February.
There aren't many good Ken Russell films. There aren't. They actually get worse and worse and worse as he gets older and older, or got older.
Yeah. Altered States, The Devils, Women in Love.
Yeah.
People love these, though, don't they? They really rate them. I've watched them and I've never liked them.
No, they're not good. I don't know what version of reality they live in. But, he directed Elton John's Nikita video and did a video for Cliff Richard, to She's So Beautiful video.
Yeah.
But don't excuse him for doing Altered States, like you say, The Devils, Women in Love, and Lair of the White Worm. Lair of the bloody white worm. Oh, do you know, right? And because this came up at Gothic, and I thought, I'm not going to watch Gothic because I know it's rubbish. And I'm not going to watch that horrible one he did about prostitutes that came later because it's just filth and it's horrible. And I didn't want to watch that. I can't remember what it's called now. But I thought, you know what? I'll rewatch Lair of the White Worm because, you know what? It's based on a Bram Stoker story originally. Thought,
yeah, it is.
And
yes,
so
it
ties into kind of Dracula that we looked at last episode. So I'll watch it. It is just rubbish. It got Hugh Grant in it. Guy that played Doctor Who's in it. Scottish guy. Can't remember his name. Life and Money. It's got Amanda Donoghue in it in basically an elastic band for most of the film, for what it looked like to me. And there's some really funny throwaway lines in it, though. Really funny. There's a sequence in it, right? And if I describe this to you as it happens in the film, you'd be like, because you wouldn't believe me. But if I said to you a lost scout who she is bathing uses a harmonica to make her do a snake dance before she throws it into a fire and says it freaks her out. Now, that's the kind of film you're dealing with. Now, normally I'd go for that kind of thing because I love that kind of weird shit. But that film took it to a new rubbish level when she was about to... I'm not even going to say what happened towards the end of that film. None of it's good.
Is it the biting with the fangs on a certain piece of the male anatomy?
Yeah. She famously bites the scout kid, the scout boy.
Yeah.
But you don't see it. You hear this crunch sound like she's just bitten into a broken potato, and it's
like a spit of celery.
Oh, it's not nice. It gets worse though. That film. It's just honestly, I know I say this to you all the time, but you don't have to be the only one that does it. For people who listen to this podcast, if you really want to watch a crap film, go and watch Lair of the White Worm. It is so bad. I can't explain how bad that film is. I can't. It's just bad. It's bad in every way bad. But it's got Hugh Grant in it. It's got these big ticket actors in it. And if you want to watch Amanda Donoghue, menace a woman who's hanging over a snake pit with a giant dildo, this is the film for you because that's what happens. That's what I mean. If you could take little snippets of this film and describe it to people, they wouldn't believe it existed. And yet it's all true. It's all true.
To be fair, he did Tommy as well.
Yes, he did do Tommy, and that isn't good, is it? Let's not say it is.
What, Tommy?
Yeah.
Well, God, we're going to be stepping on some toes there if we say that ain't good.
No, that's not to say I don't like the band and I don't like the music. I don't like the film. Oliver Reed's in that. All ties in. Oliver Reed's in a few of them, isn't he, actually?
He is, yeah. It's an Oliver Reed episode.
Yeah, it is.
I feel we should start getting drunk and make monkey noises.
What, again?
Yeah, just like we did for those for just for our listeners. That's our warm-up routine. It's like,
yeah. Anyway, go and watch Lair of the White Worm, and yes, that film is what it's about.
I can't recommend it. I can't.
It's got a punk performance in it it's actually, sorry, not punk. It's a punk Irish band singing a song about the Brampton worm. They're not even in Brampton. They got it wrong.
Where are they?
Well, the actual snake creature in it's called Diagon, I think, or something like that, or Digon, which is never really talked about. At the first step, he's excavating someone's back garden and finds a giant snake skull, a prehistoric snake skull. That's how the film begins. See, that's what I mean. If you just take little bits and describe it, you won't believe me. Like, really? It's the worst acting and script in the known universe. And let me tell you, right, it makes Hellraiser 2 look like an Oscar-worthy film. The script
you're making me want to watch it now.
Do. Go and watch it. Because like I said, I'm taking snippets out and describing them to you, and you're going, that just sounds wild and bizarre.
It sounds like a treat for 2022.
It's just bizarre.
I don't know. Maybe.
It's weird. Very weird.
Maybe we should do like a watch of some of these films for on Patreon.
Yeah, I'm beginning to wonder whether we do a little film watch for it just for a laugh. Anyway, we'll figure that out. But Lair of the White Worm is going to be on that list, so watch out.
Oh, Jesus Christ. Okay, because that's pretty much the last one in it. Because what's the next one? The 27th of February. You could have watched Nanu.
No, what thing he says? Mork and Mindy, Nanu.
Yeah, Nanu. Yeah, but she's got Imogen Stubbs in.
Okay.
It's directed by Connie Templeman.
Okay.
Connie... What's that? Just reminds me of The Simpsons. Is it Connie Chan Christmas?
Connie Templeton, Imogen Stubbs.
right.
Yeah, okay.
That's it. That's all they wrote for film and TV for February 1987. So what
God.
do we have? We had a lot of people watching
Question of Sport.
We had the birth of procedural TV in the law. We had a ape like Oliver Reed, very, very odd TV show, whatever the hell that is. We had AIDS. Well, we didn't have AIDS, but I mean, there was an AIDS.
AIDS awareness. Yeah.
Yeah, with Jack Lemmon in a lost film. We had Gross Out in The Fly. We had Brilliance in Ferris Bueller. We had an ape like Oliver Reed in Castaway.
Yeah.
And then we had more about Lair of the White Worm than Gothic.
Yeah, because Gothic's rubbish and Lair of the White Worm.
Because Gothic is crap.
Features crazy scenes.
Which you can barely believe in when they are described.
You can.
So there you go. That's your TV. Let's move on. Let's get out of here. Listen to our sponsor, and we'll be back very soon with another load of games, another 7 games still to come. So please stick around.
Lovely artisan crackers and cheese to our show sponsor davidhearnwriter.com. Let's grab another tasty audio nibble from his fab audiobook, Paddy Go Easy, What Happens When You Hit and Run, narrated by none other than David Hearn.
Why aren't you at work instead of here bothering me? I'm on Arvo shift this week. Times change every week. Bill nodded his disapproval. The boy was good for nothing. Why couldn't his daughter see that? Sometimes he wished he could just bury the string of boyfriends that badgered his daughters in the backyard until his girls got some sense about them. He'd be running out of plot space by now, he supposed. In addition, there were some annoying laws, probably made by those without daughters, prohibiting such actions. Local coal miners nearly dried up, but if you're keen, and if you work like a Trojan, I could talk to a mate who's working on starting up at Ebenezer again. Paddy frowned. I don't work like a virus, but no, I've heard it's a long shot. I don't have the dosh, and they may not have the infrastructure to support it, he said. Bill's frown went further south.
I bet I know that you want some more, right? Well, visit davidhearnwriter.com to find out a whole lot more.
All right, we're back. There was our sponsor. Let's get in. We've got a load of games still to come up. Another 7, in fact, for this part before we sign off in this episode. So let's get into them. Let's get into them quickly. And Graham, do you want to tell us all about Light Force?
I do. This is the first game from the FTL banner of Gargoyle Games. And there is an emergency call from the colonies around Regulus. I think Regulus is actually out of Star Trek, or is that Regulo 1? Anyway, and the message is spaceships of unknown origin landing at key positions. So the GEM Council reacts to this and mobilises all of their space force in the Regulus sector. Unfortunately, only one Light Force glider is near, which is you. You are the one. So you've got to go in there, free the 2 planets, the water world and the ice world, and the space that lies between. So Light Force is, with that background, designed by Greg Folis and Roy Carter, and it's a vertically scrolling shoot-'em-up. Obviously, it's developed by Gargoyle and under their Faster Than Light banner. So you control the spaceship and you sort of fly around shooting at stuff. So standard shoot 'em up kind of logic. Now this game is pretty fast. Graphics are quite nice. You get patterns of aliens in that kind of tradition of they come down from the bottom, they come down from the top, come up from the bottom, fly around and whiz about and do all those kind of things. You've also got to shoot, as is seems to be the de rigueur for these kind of things at the moment, shoot parts of the sort of spaceships, space hulks that you fly over. So you've got to shoot some of those out. This game spans 5 levels. You've got jungle section, asteroid belt, ice planet, desert planet, ends with alien factories. And as you fly over them, you get these kind of nice, the backgrounds are quite nicely realized. The sprites are chunky-ish, but they kind of get away with it, so they kind of look nice. It controls really fast. You can upgrade your weapons. You've got like a smart bomb if you press space bar, so it sort of blows the enemies up on the screen. And you've got to shoot at the various aliens and work your way through those levels, a la most shoot-em-up logic. Graphics in this game, like I said, they're kind of a medium res, but they do look nice shading on sort of nice. It's base relief plus, I think is the best way I can describe the graphics on this. There's a little bit more shading on it on the just pure base relief, so it's not just like a shadow, maybe of the bottom left and right hand corner or whatever. It's got kind of a nice look. So the look of the game is fine. Now, I haven't even mentioned the sound. This features one of the greatest Rob Hubbard soundtracks of all of his soundtracks, in my opinion. Now, I'm a huge, huge fan of the Light Force music. It is astonishingly good. Really brilliant, driving, sci-fi-esque synth theme, pure Rob Hubbard, by design. This isn't a version of anything else. Really suits this game. Really makes you feel like it drives the pace of the game. I think the game's kind of average shooter territory, but this soundtrack, as with a lot of the things with a good Rob Hubbard soundtrack, when it's really good like this, really pushes it up a notch. So you've got a good shooter with a good soundtrack, nice sound effects. It's quite hard. Has to be said, this is a very difficult, and not just, I think in actuality, maybe too hard. There's challenge and there's this game. It's a tough old game. I mean, to get to some of the final levels, you've got to really be, I think, either memorize the patterns of things or just be lucky, because sometimes these things just kill you really quickly and it's like, oh. But I think for me, this felt like the first really good, proper vertical shooter on the Commodore 64 that had the music and the sound effects and the look and feel of the graphics, and they all came together. And most importantly, the speed. It had enemies in it. It had patterns. It had all those things you want to see in a game of this type. And for those reasons, I think it's an important game and a good one. Now, I'm not wholly struck on many of these sort of top-down shooters. I actually quite like side-scrolling shooters if I'm going to go for this kind of thing. But this isn't a bad old game, and that music is just brilliant. And that's the benchmark we've got initially from Hubbard in February. It's going to be a real difficult choice at the end of this year, because the Light Force music is just brilliant. So great music, good graphics. They're a bit brown in places, but maybe a bit brown here and there, brownish, but good graphics all the same. I quite like the opening screen where you get these like little sort of rotating things sort of appearing, and slowly over time more of them rotate. And it's quite nice touches to that. You get that in between the levels as well. But yeah, I quite like it. This isn't a bad game. Certainly a good opening gambit from FTL and Gargoyle. So yeah, fair play. Not bad at all. What about you?
Yeah, I like this. So we get another vertical scrolling shooter, but like you said, this one gets the balance right for the system. It feels right, even though it is chunky and wide, which is weird. Somehow it kind of works. It doesn't try anything beyond standard vertical scrolling tropes, really. Smart bombs, a de-rigger, shooting upwards, it waves, patterns, but it just, the whole thing works. It's fast, the scrolling is nice and smooth. There's a decent assortment of enemy waves and types, be they sort of formation based, or like those ones that come down like asteroids, or the spinning boxes things, and things like that, the cube things, which are both ground based and wave based. There's things to shoot. There's bonuses to get if you take out all the parts of a sort of emplacement, of a sort of system on the ground. That's all good. The pace is fast, so interest is kept at a maximum. It keeps you going. You're not pausing for stuff. There's always something usually to shoot and avoid, whatever. Like you said, I like the visuals. They are chunky, but they're nice. They're well detailed, and there's loads of really nice animations, both in the enemies, I thought, and the backgrounds. The enemies look good. They're decent. I'm always a sucker for a moon moving around a planet. Yeah, there's one of those in the background. I just love that. I loved it so much. A game I'm doing at the moment in Unity, which is just a C64 throwback, has a moon moving around a planet. I can't help it. I love them. I love that bit of animation. And like the little ripples that go up if you blow up a bridge in level 2. It's really good. There's only 4 levels to play through, which maybe I would have liked a bit more. You're right, it is tough, but you will get there once it's not that massive. But I think what is here is a really solid shooter. And like you've said, and I can't disagree with you, it's a great Hubbard soundtrack. It's really, really good. From the moment that kicks in, it's just an ace bit of tunage. It's just brilliant. And it's one of those you remember. It is. One of his best. And his probably, I keep saying this with loads of things. It's my favourite, but it's his best today. I don't know. It's just a really, really cracking Hubbard tune.
It is really good.
And it suits the game. It keeps the game moving. It's got a really nice feel to it. I just can't imagine this game without it. And I think you can turn it off, can't you? Which would be a travesty.
Yeah, you can if you want to.
You'd never do that. It's just stupid. Why would you do that? I don't know. But this is really good. It's a quality effort. And yeah, for £9, it's got 87%. It's probably about right. It's probably not quite Sizzler material.
Yeah, I'd agree with that.
Because it's just a little bit, it just needs a little bit more, I think. A couple more levels maybe, and maybe, a little bit more, but maybe a boss at the end of a level or something.
I think it's missing the bosses.
Yeah, the bosses at the end would have been good to see. So maybe taking those from Bulldog, which we played. Yeah. So taking that would have been quite interesting, and just added that little bit of extra moments to it, sort of thing. So you want a bit of a boss at the end of it, would have been good to see. But as it is, I really enjoyed my time with this, and going back to it, at first it was, you kind of have to get used to that, because it's a wide ship you control, isn't it?
It is quite wide, yeah.
It's weirdly wide, which I thought was odd at first, but because it's fast, and because I think there's a generous amount of collision detection.
Yeah.
So you can get round stuff, and there's also some quite nice wave sort of patterns, like those balls that I like the fact that those ones that come up from the bottom, if they go past you, they don't kill you.
Yes.
So that's like a nice player affordance. It's like, because it could be really annoying. Things coming up from the bottom, which you don't know are coming. If you are where they are and they kill you, that's annoying. But this doesn't kill you. They don't affect you until they're back up at the top and then starting coming down. That's nice touch. That's allowing the player to react. And you feel like, oh, just got out of the way of that. But really, they're not going to hit you. So that's good. There's also those ones that come up, or they're coming from the side. And then just when they're just not quite in the middle of you, they start to come down towards you. So you have to sort of move in to shoot them. So they're quite just a little bit off center. I like that as a sort of wave pattern, because you're not just moving straight into your bullet. They got to hit you. So you've got to move and you've got to sort of track them. There's loads of nice things in this. The cubes coming down are good. It's just good. It's just somebody's looked at whoever made this. Who is it? Did you say who made it again? What were the guys' names?
It's Greg Follis and Roy Carter.
Well, clearly they've looked at arcade shoot-em-ups and stuff and then taken what they needed to from them and what works, and they've made a really good vertical scrolling shoot-em-up. I like vertical scrolling shoot-em-ups, and I like Light Force. Always have done. And I was pleased to go back to it and find that I still like it now. So there you go. I like it. It's good. Heavy Force, Light Force, whatever. Good. Light Force is a strange name, though.
It wasn't originally called that, was it? I think.
I don't know. What was it called?
I remember reading as I was going through the Light Force was. And was it that they wanted to call it Faster Than Light, and they figured that actually they'd save that for something better, and it ended up being called Light Force, I think. So,
all right.
I think
and Faster Than Light became the label they're on, I guess.
Yeah, because I think they thought it was too cool for this game.
All right. Well, there you go. That's a good one to start with. So another nice title to start a section off with.
Yeah.
And from one vertical scrolling shooter, we go to another vertical scrolling shooter in our next game. And our next game is another arcade port. So this is Xevious. How do you pronounce it?
I'd say Xevious.
Xevious. So this is old, isn't it? This is an old port. This is almost Donkey Kong old.
Yeah, it's an oldie.
So this is 1982-83, and it was a huge release in the arcades. It was massive, and really set an early benchmark for vertical scrolling shooters. It was the first to do a lot of things, this game, in the arcades, and it's a classic vertical scrolling shoot 'em up, but it's also 5 years old. So there's no real story to this, as much as there was to Light Force, other than you just got to protect the world from bizarre flying and ground-based enemies. So that's it, really. There's not much to talk about. It is a vertical scrolling shooter with lots of green, all the green. So you've got two modes of attack in this, which is the weird thing, strange thing. And I'll come to another game which I never twigged took a lot from this. And we have spoken about it, but I'll come to it in a minute. So you have two modes of attack. You've got straight up shot like a normal shooter, but you've also got a reticule that hovers sort of, a couple of ship lengths in front of you. And if you hold down the fire button, it launches a bomb that destroys the ground-based enemies. So you have to do that. The thing is, though, you can just hold down the fire button all times, and it just fires constantly bombs and lasers. So there doesn't seem to be much reason to ever not do that. But that's it, really. There's no waves in so much as recognizable waves. They're randomized and weird. So some look okay. The graphics for some of them are okay. The rotating tables, I don't know what else to call them. They're quite nice. The big squares that rotate, but everything else is pretty grotty. It's pretty awful. It's pretty green and grey on the light grey or the sort of medium grey of the Commodore 64 on a green background doesn't look good. They're too close, and it's a bit of a colour merge, and they kind of wobble about, and the bullets that they fire are really wobblier than the Warhawk ones, and it's just green. There's so much green and the odd bit of yellow, and I didn't quite understand why this has been converted and released now. It just seems an odd release, because we've just played Light Force. And I didn't actually mean to put these slap bang together, which kind of just happened. But playing Light Force and then going to this, maybe Light Force, maybe it's been a bit unkind on this, but I found this a bit of a mess. And I looked at the original arcade game, and that still seemed okay. But they've done that thing again, which they did with 1942, which was make a really tall game squat. Because Xevious in the arcade is really tall, this is not, and so it doesn't work, and it's just not very good. But I never realised the thing with this. I think that this was a massive influence on Black Hawk.
Oh, without a doubt.
I never twigged, because I was never really aware of Xevious, because I never really saw it in many arcades or anything. Because with Black Hawk did that, if you get this game, and they've just tried to do the thingy, but Black Hawk did that clever double screen thing. But if you, in my book, if you want a green shooter bomber game, because Black Hawk's pretty green, and much older, it's 2-3 years old at this point, where you do that one screen is bomber and one screen is shooter, and you do those two kind of mechanics into one game, go play Black Hawk, because that's still pretty good, and it's still an interesting mechanic and still works. And if you want a standard shooter, play Light Force at this point. So I didn't get this. I didn't get why this was released. I thought it was questionable. And for a tenner, I mean, it got 21%, which... Yeah, because this is not a very good version of Xevious. And it's just, I don't know, it's a port out of time again. We had this with Crystal Castles, we had this with Donkey Kong. It's just, I don't get it. I don't understand. It's just raiding the back catalogue of arcades and doing bad conversions. I just don't get it. This should have been easy to convert on the C64, a better version than what we have here, because this is not very, very good. So that's what I thought. What about you?
I think there's an irony to having this one after Light Force. It's because you can see what can be done and then what should not be done.
Yeah.
So the like you say, the arcade Namco arcade was always pretty good. It was kind of a standout one at the time. This conversion is slow. It's badly programmed, really badly engineered. The result is a dull, tonally offensive eye shit.
There's a phrase.
I thought that blocky sprites stagger over the badly realised backgrounds, making it hard to play, and it's just unpleasant all around. Exactly, it's an eye shit.
I've got a bit of Xevious in my eye.
It was just unpleasant, and like you say, there is elements of, without doubt, of Black Hawk in there, but the target reticule seemed to serve no purpose. Like you say,
no, it doesn't.
I'd not shown it, and yet in Black Hawk it does serve a purpose, doesn't it?
Well, they split it, didn't they? They split it into two screens, so they've taken the two elements of Xevious and split them.
I didn't play the arcade or look at any YouTube footage of it, so I don't know if the target reticule in the arcade has a purpose. Maybe it does, I don't know.
It doesn't, it's exactly the same.
Because I suppose the idea is that you're meant to be targeting your bombs. It doesn't matter because the game's really slow. Shoot 'em shouldn't be slow, and we've just played one that was really fast and had the great soundtrack, and this is none of those things. If you put these side by side on a shelf, mercifully for them, they didn't call it Xevious, because then it would have been sat next to Light Force on the shelf. Light Force, I keep saying Light Force, Light Force on the shelf, wouldn't it? So thankfully they put it in the X's, so it's right near the bottom right-hand corner of the shelves.
Next to Xeno.
Yeah, exactly. So no, just like you say, why do this anyway? Just it's just clearly some kind of. And I wonder sometimes some of these releases have worked their way to the C64 via really unusual routes. So there are old Atari conversions or MSX conversions, or there's been some conversion history, and the Commodore 64 has been realised by either another team, or it's just, because sometimes these are converted to like 9 different systems. And now I can't imagine that's a difficult proposition. Nowadays, we don't have that because the software is ubiquitous to make these sort of things. But if someone said to you with your game that you're making in Unity that you had to make a different version for 19 different types of computer with different graphic capabilities, different sound capabilities, it'd be a job of knocks, don't you? You'd be like, no, I'm not doing that. And I think sometimes that's where they get to. They've done the good conversions and they're just doing these because they've got to tick yes, we've done the C64 version box, so this isn't very good, and I would avoid it. If you're going to play a shoot 'em up like this type, just go and play Light Force right now. Way better.
Yeah, way better. Yeah, strange release this. And you wait ages for an X game to come along, and then 2 come along in the same episode.
That's it.
And they're both crap.
We had H's last time. Now it's bloody X's.
Yeah, we had H's. Now it's X's. H and X. That's that shop you don't know about.
H and
clothes shop.
So
shop
ham and
that
eggs.
no one knows about. Ham and eggs. How'd you like your eggs?
Xeno style.
Oh, with the pointless bombs. Here we go. More nonsense coming up, probably. I'm giving things away. I don't care now. Because we've got vector nonsense coming up after this bit. Because Graham, tell us about the C64 port of Starglider.
Starglider from Rainbird. I might even put a little snippet of that because it's hilariously bad. So here we are, Starglider. Now, my first experience of Starglider was on an Atari ST, which is its natural home, the Atari ST and the Amiga. So this was actually one of the first 16-bit Amiga ST games that I ever saw. I went to a show, and they called it the New Computer Show. This was at J&M Software in Grimsby. And they had, at the time, an Amiga and an Atari ST, which, bear in mind, at this time, they were very expensive machines. They were quite new. Well, they weren't new, but they were new. Where in the context of me and my friends who couldn't afford the £600 or £700, I think there was some ridiculous price at the time. I knew one person that had an Atari ST, much later down the line, and of course, I ended up getting an Amiga in the end. But at this point in time, these were pipe dream machines, and I remember seeing Deluxe Paint, I remember seeing Defender of the Crown and Starglider, and I was blown away. So I imagine that, and now I say blown away graphically and by the sound, obviously. I know looking back on it now, the sound is horrible, but it had loads of speech in it. It was 3D. It was solid 3D, and it was impressive to look at on those 16-bit machines. The Commodore 64 version comes along, coded by CM Wong, and it's got a story, a very elaborate story. In fact, a really heavy story. Now, what have we learned? If anyone who listens to this podcast and has listened to all the 40 episodes, what I'm about to say, in fact, you know what I'm going to say. This story for this game was written by somebody called, it comes with a novella, an actual novella. It was packaged with a novella by James Follett, and that's a guy that wrote a couple of episodes of Blake 7. So it came with its own novella and this really elaborate story. So Navenia is being attacked by the Ergons. The Ergons effortlessly blitz Navenia despite the planet possessing a previously impenetrable network of utterly deadly defense satellites. The Ergons defeat the system, this is my favorite bit, by disguising their battleships as a flock of intergalactic migratory birds, the Stargliders. The defense satellites had been programmed to not fire on the birds. I think that's a Category 1 defensive strategy error, is to say,
Yep.
As long if it's migrating birds, don't shoot them. I mean, no, don't kill the birdies. And so they didn't recognise the Ergon ships that were sneakily, cunningly disguised as those. And so, obviously, it allowed the Ergons to reach the surface uncompromised. So your job is to fight them off using the only obsolete airborne ground attack vehicle, or the AGAV, at your disposal, and it's supposed to be the ultimate combat machine, and this is what makes me laugh, with sophisticated hardware up to Drazu Yarg's high standards. Good old Drazu Yarg. It has a fully rechargeable shield, plasma drive unit, an inbuilt scanner, and 10,000 sector map, and a top speed, Eddie, get this, 2,550 Eurads. All right. Now that, I'm telling you, right, now, if you're going to buy a vehicle that has got a top speed of anything over 2,000 Eurads, you are going to be needing a space helmet. All right. So just remember that.
Did you say Drazu Yarg?
Yes.
That's Grey Wizard backwards.
Yes, it is.
God's sake. But I hate that kind of nonsense.
Same. And it comes with 2 homing missiles. Only 2. It comes with 2 homing missiles. I'm sensing that they went for speed over defense. Anyway, so the game is actually viewed from the cockpit of the AGAV, and you have like a little display at the bottom of the grid. You're on a grid.
You sound like a Cockney shouting after someone.
Oh, Gav. Hey, Gav. Get your cockpit, you bloody idiot. So you've got control over the speed, you've got weapons targeting and firing, and you've basically got to shoot, there's repair debris that you can fly into, but you've basically got to sort of battle and shoot the ground things that now exist in there, and sort of fly across and defeat the enemies that way. So you're actually sort of flying along, shooting down the various things that you've got to shoot at. All well and good so far, no problem. However, the difficulty then becomes that the C64 version of the game is so stripped down in its super slow vector mode, so you're in vector graphic territory. This is not good territory. Multicolour vector territory, even worse. And what it ends up being is actually just like kind of dots, just dots with various.
It's so reduced.
It's so reduced down. It's kind of it's kind of dots, but it's got periodically got like geometric shapes floating around at different angles that are supposed to be enemies. I think
it's gone full on dam busters.
So all of the brouhaha and pomp and circumstance and everything else, take all of that away, and what you've got is a badly realised combat vector game with some kind of space shooty dot to dot. I was shooting at some of the enemies for ages. It didn't seem to make a blind bit of difference. What I was doing didn't seem to do anything. It's got really unpleasant sounds punching through in the C64 version. It's utterly an unenjoyable experience because it's just a version that's been pushed out because it needed to be pushed out. And I'll tell you something that you'd never normally hear me say. The Spectrum 48K version of Starglider is better than the Commodore 64 version. It is. And even its in monochrome glory, it's better.
I'm going to argue that's a phrase that's going to come up later on, but we'll get to that.
Yeah. No, I just think this was a 16-bit game that should never have been ported to an 8-bit machine. I say that the Spectrum version is at least passable because it handles vector graphics better. This 64 version is just a complete and utter sluggy, dotty, periodically interspersed with random vector-based graphics, just trying to describe some shape. And what you end up with is something that's just utterly rubbish. And I didn't think anything of it at all. Even the opening graphic Starglider image was pretty lame. And that's the thing you always see dotted about. So, no, not for me, this Starglider. But I'll give the old 16-bit one a go one time over. You?
No, it's garbage. I hate this. I think my first comment is I cannot stand these type of games. Boring, flying through slow black landscape to aim at some dots.
Yeah.
The subpar Star Wars type creatures in green and red meander about as the C64 struggles to run vector graphics. That's what we're doing here. This is not my idea of a way to enjoy myself.
No.
I went off to find the instructions after playing around in it just to get sort of a lay of the land. And I decided I've got better things to do. I didn't want to. I can't do these games. They just don't run on this machine. They're pointless. They're a waste of time. A deport. I think you'd call it a deport.
Yeah, I think it is.
Word, a deport from the Amiga and the ST it's just never going to be good, especially when based around vector graphics, which is, aside from like isometric games, but with isometric games, the C64's Achilles heel. It just doesn't do them well.
No, and do you know what I think?
Stop doing them.
When they've called it 8-bit, what they actually mean is they're taking 8 bits of the Amiga version and made it into this game, and that's all that's left is just 8 bits. eight crappy bits. 8 shit.
Yeah, the 8-shit version of Starglider is not very good. It's just
you say
really
8
not.
shit or ape shit?
It could be either. It's full on Oliver Reed.
It is. Oliver Reed's Starglider. Now that'd be interesting.
It would be. He probably has glided on a few stars in his time. But it's 15 quid. It's £15.
You are just being bummed if you're bloody paying that for this.
I put, as a game with the word glider in it, I would have rather played Glider Pilot.
Well, you don't do a lot of gliding. I mean, the Stargliders are these birds, aren't they? But it's just stupid. What am I even realising? What am I saying?
I couldn't stand this. It's just these kind of games. We know we don't like them, but I'm willing to give them a go. But there's a point, and this is another thing. This is like what we said last week about the arcade conversions. You're trying to squeeze a 16-bit game into 8 bits. A 16-bit game that is all about the look and the feel and the Starglide, all that nonsense, and you're just trying to shove it in, and what you're left with is dots. That's the approximation. It's just pointless. Dotty.
Terrible.
Dots. I hated it. I really did. I just made myself laugh playing it.
What was it scoring, Zap?
It got 68%.
Yeah, that's way more than I'd have given it.
It's about 67 more than I'd have given it.
Yeah, it is utter it's utter shit. You know what it is?
I couldn't be doing with it. There we go. I don't know. I can't. Crap glider, whatever. Anyway, let's move
glider. On. Now that would make that opening music different, wouldn't it? Crap glider.
From Rain Turd.
Rain Turd, Rain Turd. Don't tempt me to do a redux of that.
You know what redux you've got to do at the moment. You've got a full-on project to do at the minute.
I'm working on it.
Good. Right. Which will probably be out by the time you hear this, dear listeners. Anyway, all right, that's Starglider. Crap. Let's move on, because it don't get any better. It doesn't. God.
I can't tell how happy I was that you got this.
Thanks. All right, yeah, next up. It's a knockout.
I wish it was.
Oh, God. I wish
it had just knocked me unconscious so I didn't have to play it.
Yeah, it knocked me out, thankfully. It's a knock one out. It's a knockout. So it's a knockout. It's one of those very strange shows from the 70s and then the 80s that could probably only be made back then and get away with it, because this was where people would compete in ludicrous events. They were dressed up in massive inflatable outfits, and it'd all be very silly, and lots of people would fall over, and it'd be stupid, and it was generally, just I used to like It's a Knockout. It was a fun, it was stupid, because you'd basically, it was usually, there was 2 versions of it. There was the sort of local version where people from, I don't know, Bognor Regis would play against people from Birmingham, against people from Grimsby, against people from Leeds. There'd be 4 teams or something, 6 teams. And the events were like, you'd have someone dressed up as a giant inflatable waiter, and they'd have to wobble along and try and collect glasses out of a bucket or something, and then wobble back, and everything would be wobbling and water would be flying everywhere. And it was just one of them stupid things. And Eddie Waring and Stuart Hall. Oops. Let's not go down there. But that was the people who did the commentary, would be laughing their heads off, and it would be very silly, and the commentary was all over. It was just a silly entertainment, perfect sort of 70s, 80s entertainment. Then you would have the international version, where the best of the British would play the best of the Italians and the French and the Belgians.
This was like an international
It was an international
License,
thing,
wasn't
yes.
it?
Yeah, massively so. So there was the Germans, there was the Italians, there was the French, I think the Belgians, and the Netherlands. And that's what this is. So what this is a version of the international game. But what we actually have here in this version of it, and you've got those, like we said, you've got this kind of idea that this could be something a bit fun, but what we have is a real bare bones multi-event thing that is supposed to be fun and enjoyable and a bit wacky, but just falls down on every level. The presentation is incredibly bereft of anything that is even close to what you would call presentation. When it loads up, it's just text saying who do you want to be, what kind of thing do you want, how many playing, whatever, what country do you want to be. It's like it begrudges you playing it. So for a game that's supposed to be all, whimsical and jolly and happy, just seeing a boring black screen with some text on it is not a good intro to this.
No.
So there are 6 countries you can play as: UK, Germany, France, Italy, Belgium, and the Netherlands, or Holland as it is in the game. You can pick how many players you want and who's what country, and then you get to compete in 6 events. Those events are the following. You have the flan fling, where you have to catch flans flung over a wall, and the floor gets more slippery as you drop more flans, and you have to deposit them on the table. You have the Harlem hoppers, where you have to catch a ball rolled from a camel's back while tied to a piece of elastic. You have a Titanic drop, where you have to drop people into life rings as they slide down a rope. You've got the diet of worms, where you're a chicken or a turkey or something, you have to pick up worms and deposit them in a bucket. And you have the obstacle race, where you waggle like crazy and you jump over obstacles. And the 6th one is the marathon, which happens to it's a solo one, but one of the countries is chosen at random at the end of each loop, and they do this, and basically what it is, you have to drop a weight on a mole's head as it emerges from various holes. None of these games are fun. They may sound quite amusing, but they're just terrible to control. They look crap. They're single screen events. They're just terrible. Every event is flawed and just manages to be unfun and annoying rather than fun and enjoyable. The graphics are just rubbish. They range from inept to maybe a bit passable on the other one. And I dread to think what you thought of the national anthems when you have a go at the Epics ones.
Not good things.
Because they would make the Epics ones spin in their grave if they were dead. So this reminded me terribly of that crappy Jeff Capes game.
Yeah.
In the fact of like this. But and because these novelty things are just crap. They're just rubbish. Pub games, this, Jeff Capes, they can't do them. They're just garbage. And at this price point, $8.95, for an extra £1, I'm going to go buy World Games.
Yeah.
Because World Games is a series of novelty sport events, but Jesus Christ, it's in a whole different league. And why would I even want to play this? Because it's not representative of the sort of the real thing in any way, shape, or form. And it's just dreadful and rubbish. And you're not going to have those big inflatable things bouncing off each other, whatever, and a bit of fun and creating just the flan toss is just annoying because the physics and the gravity is just all over the shop. Catching that ball off the back of the bloody camel, crap. A quick question for you, if you played through all of them?
I did.
Did you ever manage to jump over the bouncing ball in the obstacle race?
Once, I think.
Without it hitting you? Because every time it hit me, every time.
Once, I think. Maybe.
Just
but
rubbish.
The waggling was really weirdly unresponsive for me. The way it waggled and jumped and ran, it was really odd.
Yeah, it's just awful. This was a really crap game, 34%, and that's way too much. I hate, again, another thing, because as a kid, like you with Scooby Doo, I used to love It's a Knockout. I just used to be really entertained by it. It was just a bit of good-natured fun, and this just crapped on it. I hated it. What about you?
No, I'm the same. I mean, if you're going to play a multi-sport game, you're going to play World Games at this point. So this comes along into that arena, brings along its erratic array of games, none of which are fun, none of which are really anything you've seen on It's a Knockout, really. Maybe the flan flinging, but I don't remember them ever hanging people off ships and trying to drop them through hoops. I certainly don't remember camels being involved, but maybe I'm wrong, I don't know. Anyway, what really annoyed me with this was that if you played it one player, you had to, it's sort of the game's carried, when you played, you did your bit, and then each national anthem would play, and then it would give the score that team got. But it had to go through all the options. You had to sort of keep skipping it with the fire button, or you would just sit there listening to 6 different national anthems and then a score over and over and over again. It was infuriating to have to do that.
Yep.
And so you play these crappy games where you determine the winner, and then overall you just get like, you're the best. Yay, well done. It's like, it's totally and utterly goalless, pointless. All of the things that you could have learned from looking at something like World Games, Summer Games 2, Winter Games, all of the things you could take from those games, you could have applied that logic to any of these and just made events that would have been out, even just because my memories of It's the Knockout on the TV are more often than not games, it's a bit like an adult version of a sports day. So there'd be kind of an adult version of an egg and spoon race, only you'd be like, you say, a waiter carrying a tray with a load of stuff on it. Or you'd have to run to the end of a thing, fill up a bit of water, a bucket full of water, you'd have to run. You'd be two of you with the legs tied together, what do you call it, like a sack race. You've got to carry the water, fill up, and it's that kind of logic, an adult version of that kind of logic. And so there's a lot of fun to be had in stuff like that, people falling over and water tipping over and all that kind of thing. Yeah, but none of that's present in this game. None of it. It makes each one of those games feels like a single player experience. With the exception of a couple. I know there's multiple players on the screen, but even that crazy Diet of Worms one, which is really weird because you just play a bird. No, it's just odd. Just the logic of it. Even the Bronte Bash, with the dinosaur heads, and it's the most elaborate, crappy version of a whack-a-mole game where they're dropping a 50-ton weight on a mole. Why wouldn't you just make it whack-a-mole? Or have a better version of that would have been to have, somebody on where you throw pies at them, like a bit like the 180 darts thing, but pie throwing. There's loads of opportunity in a game like this, but this was never going to be any good. So if you can endure all those terrible National Anthem themes repeatedly, because they do torture you with them, and you can skip them, but you have to keep skipping every time, which is annoying. Graphics just go from being blocky to awkward, and it just felt like they've learned nothing from World Games, so why would you bother with this? It's Ocean, what have you done? What are you doing, Ocean? Come on, pull your socks up. We've had enough of this now.
Yep,
we've had enough of this now. This is one bad game after another bad game after another bad game after another bad game. Let's put the brakes on, let's take stock of what we're doing, and let's have a rethink here, because reputationally, I always held Ocean in really high regard. I always remembered, and still do in some ways, I have to say, but it's being tarnished. My memory of their games is being massively tarnished as we're going through this podcast, because they're rapidly revealing themselves to be not very good. Large percentages of them have been awful, and especially the recent ones. This is no exception. Take it away and dunk it under a huge pool of water with your foot on its head.
Yes.
Terrible.
Yes. Terrible game. Really bad. And I was disappointed because it could have been fun. Could have been a fun little knockabout thing, but with a bit of thought and stuff, but it isn't. It's just dreadful. So there you go. It's a knockout. It's not a knockout. It's crap. Ugh. So Graham, though, on our next one, tell us, don your loincloth, run about the jungle, and tell us how it's like to be in the, well, not shoes, because he didn't wear them, in the grubby feet of Tarzan.
Oh, Tarzan. Legend of Tarzan. Now, I have a complicated relationship with Tarzan. Sounds really weird, doesn't it? He comes
really
round to the house, steals all my bananas. No, it doesn't really.
He never cleans up after himself.
Keeps doing craps in my garden, and I don't like picking them up. No.
He picks bugs out my hair.
He won't stop going through my bins. Bloody. He's there again. Sod off. Bloody Tarzan.
That's Oliver Reed.
If you listen carefully, you'll hear his Tarzan call in the distance. Yeah, it doesn't work here, mate. Sorry about that. Anyway, so Tarzan was, for me, my memories of Tarzan pre this game, and I didn't actually have this game or play it a lot. I'd heard of it at the time, but prior to this, my memory of Tarzan was the TV series that was on I think, Saturday mornings on ITV, I think Johnny Weissmuller, black and white.
Oh, that Tarzan.
Yeah, and later there was a colour version that had his
Ron Whelan.
I can't remember who it was, but he had, he talked to his, his monkey, didn't he? What was he called? Cheetah, was it? Cheetah was his monkey, I think.
It was, yeah. I'm sure it's Ron something.
Complicated,
Ron Eli.
really,
was it Ron Eli?
Yeah, something like that. But it's complicated. You've got a monkey called Cheetah. Don't start naming animals after other animals, Tarzan. This is. I know you're educated, but let's just keep the animals simple. Call it Fred or something. Don't call monkeys cheetahs. Don't call cheetahs elephants.
He's got a rhino called
you're just going to
Flamingo.
Are you going to have a jungle-based identity crisis, and at some point it's going to come back to bite you, literally. Anyway, so Tarzan is the story of the human baby brought up in the wilds of Africa who, because of his upbringing, could talk to the animals, swing through the trees, call the animals to his beck and call and his aid, and do all of that magic stuff. And there are many tales of Tarzan who did all these things. I'm pretty sure that most of the tales of Tarzan involve him being menaced by white explorers in sort of, classic jungle suits with them hats that we see, and they've stolen the jungle whatever, and the jungle creatures don't like it. They call Tarzan in. Tarzan, that tends to be what this is like. And, there's a woman in peril. Tarzan has to fight off an ape or slap an ape, goes around slapping apes and stuff. No, he doesn't. And, I slap a mandrill. I don't know about you, but then, this is why he keeps coming around. Anyway, don't get me started on that because, it's a long, complicated journey with me and next door's mandrills. Anyway, so he famously had he had a monkey called Cheetah. I think he had a cat called Dog. I don't know. He had all this stuff anyway. So he lived in the jungle, and then at some point he stops living in the jungle and he gets discovered. And I think in some context of this famous Tarzan, and it's written by somebody famous I can't even remember.
Edgar Rice Burroughs.
He famously comes out like he's actually a lord of some manor in the UK, and then he meets Jane, Greatstoke, and he meets Jane, and they have monkey children. Who knows what they do? And they go back to live in the jungle.
They have human children, which they call Snake.
Snake, Chimpo.
Mongoose.
Yeah, Goosey. Anyway, the reason I say all of that sort of backstory is because this game actually takes place after he's met Jane and gone back to the jungle. So Tarzan's now back in the jungle with Jane. I'm assuming that they've just gone for some peace and quiet, taking the kids with them, and all 16 of them, and then are living in the trees in the jungle. And Jane is taken prisoner by Usanga, chief of the Wamabu. And because that's happened because their 7 gemstones, also called the Eyes of the Rainbow, for reasons that are not explained, have been stolen. So Tarzan's got to find those, return them to the chief of the Wamabo within 3 days, or Jane is going to be sacrificed. That's the premise of the game. Right. We've got all that established now. So characters, everything else. The game.
Okay, I'm fully versed.
You're fully versed in the game. So the game it's a lot like, actually, that first level in Flash Gordon. It inherits all of the same problems of that first level in Flash Gordon as well.
It does indeed.
So you're running around left and right through a maze-like jungle, periodically getting menaced by things or falling down holes and stuff. All the backgrounds look kind of samey. The graphics on Tarzan, the graphics aren't terrible, but they look a lot like the Flash Gordon graphics. Tarzan looks a bit like Flash Gordon, but naked. Well, he's not naked, but he looks like a naked Flash Gordon, so it's Tarzan. Graphics are okay, but this is not any Sacred Armor of Antiriad, so it's not winning any awards there. And you're just running around a lot trying to find the things, trying to find the eyes of the rainbow and avoiding some of the enemies. And you can run left and right, you can go front to back, a bit like we did in Heartland. You can sort of navigate your way through this, what felt to me like an endless maze, because it's so samey looking, you are lost within 2 screens. And the only way you know that you can't sometimes go to the right is because you just can't go to the right. Weirdly, though, you can disappear off to the left, but not go to the left. So you just end up sort of looking at a blank screen going, where am I?
Yep, I found that.
So some of the game doesn't feel quite finished in that logic. The Rob Hubbard soundtrack to this is a version of the Tarzan music from I guess it's the TV show, maybe.
It's the 60s TV show.
Yeah, so it's that da-da-da-da-da, which isn't bad, but it's not great, Rob Hubbard piece. The actual in-game music, as much as it's background jungle music, for one of a better script, so jungle beats, it's actually pretty atmospheric. It captures the atmosphere quite well, and it does it just well enough to not become terribly annoying. The game gets way more annoying than the music way quicker. So it's a bit repetitive. There's a night and day cycle to this game as well. So if you wait long enough, it turns to nighttime and the music changes, and it's actually quite atmospheric. Those things are quite the only good things about it. The rest of it, because by the time you've got anywhere near that, you'll be overwhelmed by A, boredom, and B, painful reflections of all the ethnic issues that Tarzan and that character represents, which I'm not going to dive into in this, but White Guy in the Jungle, you'll figure out the rest yourself. There's a couple of nice touches with that day and night cycle. The music's all right, but other than that, this is a snooze of a game. Martech, another company doing kind of mediocre gaming here. I didn't think much to it. And Zapped, I think, gave it a very average review. I don't think it was anything other than kind of...
Bang on 50%.
Yeah, so it's not in great territory, is it, Tarzan? Was you a fan of Tarzan?
What, the TV show?
Well, any of it.
I didn't mind the TV show. I'm just actually looking through, because it was Ron Ely, so the 1960s one ran for 2 seasons. Amusingly, there's an episode in season 1, episode 22, called Basil of the Bulge, which has made me laugh. Because episode 2 is also called The Ultimate Weapon. So there you go. There's also Leopard on the Loose, The 3 Faces of Death.
Leopard is the name that he has for his giraffe. So.
Yeah, probably. So that was the Ron Ely one. Yeah, I used to quite like it. I think it used to be on I don't know, was it a Saturday morning thing? It was on some point on a Saturday. So I think I used to watch the Ron Ely 1960s one just because it was there, it was on. But
do you remember, by the way, just out of curiosity, do you remember? Can you remember the varying different Tarzan calls?
I remember there's
different. Yeah, because that's the one. That's the one we remember. But there's the Johnny Weissmuller one, because he was a famous Olympic swimmer. I think the early Tarzan. He does a slight different variation of that, which I'm not going to do impression of, but I'm going to track him down and do a compilation of Tarzan cries. And then if I can find it, I'm going to try and put the Jane one at the end, because Jane has her own cry. She goes,
Oh, that's in one of the Johnny Weissmuller ones, isn't it? I remember because they used to show them, didn't they, around tea time on a Friday night. I seem to remember.
Yes, they did.
And I remember first seeing that, and I remember me and my brother laughing hysterically.
Yeah.
At that. So yes, I do remember that.
Yeah, I'm going to find
as
it.
As an aside note, have you watched the more recent Tarzan film with what's his name? He's in True Blood and stuff.
No,
Sarsgaard.
I don't actually like Tarzan.
Don't, because it's god awful.
I don't think there's a very good Tarzan movie anywhere, is there?
No, even the Christophe Lambert Legend of Greystoke.
I think Crocodile Dundee's the closest to Tarzan that I like. That's about like as close as I can get. No, he's the Australian Tarzan. He is. Talks to the animals, lives in his pants sometimes.
Right. I've never seen it, but I'll go with it. I like that. Crocodile done Tarzan. Oh, right. Yeah, whatever. Anyway, this game. What is this game, Tarzan? Yeah, you're right. It's bloody Flash Gordon, isn't it? Turnanog, Heartland. It's all them. But yeah, so you're on a 3-day quest. You got to find these 7 gemstones, as you said. Flick screen adventure, path go left, right, up, down. You fight natives, jump over leopards, and avoid square pits. It's not particularly very interesting.
Day in the life of
it gets
Tarzan,
very boring. It gets very, very boring. Like you said, the visuals, they're okay. Tarzan sprite's quite nice. The fighting is weird. you kind of punch them really far back, don't you?
Yeah, that is really odd, isn't it? Yeah, they just go flying backwards. Yeah,
they're like you go, and they go, whoosh,
till you eventually punch them off the screen. Yeah,
yeah. Until you punch them, that's it. They're done. They're just off the screen, forgotten about, lost to the C-64's memory.
It's weird.
It gets very samey very quickly. However, I have a question for you. Why are there Easter Island heads in the African jungle?
Right, that's you're bringing in logic into the Tarzan
I'm not
universe.
bringing in logic. The Easter Island heads are the other side of South America.
Yeah, I appreciate that. It's part of the Tarzan mystery.
That's what I've written. It's a mystery.
It is.
What we need is Scooby Doo.
Exactly. Yeah, get the mystery machine in. It'll pull his Tarzan mask off, and it's Old Man Winters.
I would have done it if it wasn't for you pesky cheaters.
And all the monkeys are like, why are we called that? We look at each other. Are we all called that? Oh, no.
I'm Cheetah, and so's my wife.
Tarzan, you idiot. We're all called Cheetah.
Well, it's because I can't tell you apart. And when I need help, I just shout for Cheetah. One of you is always nearby, so one of you always comes to help.
I love that.
No,
what do you mean you can't tell us apart? That's clearly bloody Anita. God, Tarzan, you idiot.
Sounds a bit like Cheetah to me. Yes. En masse. Yes.
Yes.
Oh, what's he done?
Where's the bananas?
Pass the bananas, Cheetah. I don't have the bananas. I'm not talking to you. Where are you talking to?
Tarzan,
Cheetah.
this situation is impossible, Tarzan.
What have you done to us? By this point, Tarzan has walked off.
This Tarzan's long since gone. He's back in Greystoke.
He's back and going, oh yeah, wondering what was going on. Trying to think what he's going to call all the toads. Oh dear, Cheetah. It never occurred to me that why you'd call a monkey the name of a big cat.
Yeah, well, it's just confusing the shit out of all the animals in the jungle. It really is.
Maybe that's the point.
That's why they're angry.
Maybe he's trying to show his dominance by confusing them.
I'd like to have been there when Tarzan was at that teenage stage when the monkeys were teaching him to flick poo at people, because they would have done that. No, Tarzan, you're not doing it properly. You've got to flick with the middle finger. There you go. That's how you do it. Yeah. No, please put some underpants on.
I'm not sure they'd be bothered, would they? I'm trying to think if it's the chimps from the PG Tips advert.
It's probably as cruel as they were treated. It probably is something
I know they
like
were treated very truly, but yes.
Yeah.
Dear.
Yeah.
Anyway, chimps. Tarzan, it's a bit bland and dull, innit? It's just 50% is bang on. It's utterly average.
Yeah, it is.
If you like these running up and down, trying to figure your way around a map in 3 days, you're going to like this. If you like, I'd go play Heartland. Heartland's way better.
Yeah.
If you want, this is for me. It's the best one of these we've had. Or Flash Gordon if you want to get through that first section. But it could be if it would be interesting sort of thing if Flash Gordon took off that Tron suit and he was Tarzan underneath all along. And then we could call him Flash Tarzan.
It wouldn't explain how he got on Mongo, but that doesn't matter.
Well, it's the same reason, same way the Easter Island heads got to Africa.
I tell you what, that'd be a very different situation for Dale Hardon. Sorry, Dale Arden.
Flash Tarzan sounds like a command. No, Cheetah's like.
What was that? Bananas? Oh, for God's sake!
No, don't say that.
Will you learn to speak, cheater? I mean, monkey. Oh, you got us all confused now, you bloody idiot.
Speak, cheater. Charlie says.
Get back to Greystoke, you idiot.
Cheetah says. Rah, 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 rah.
Aren't you causing enough trouble here, Tarzan?
Oh dear, that's more fun than the game was.
Absolutely.
There we go. That's Tarzan for you. 50%. Bang on. Let's move into... How many we got left? 2 left.
2 whole games left.
2 left, yes. And next up, we have another Elite arcade conversion. I use the term Elite in the name of the software company, not in the quality of the conversion. No. What we have coming up here is well, let's face it, we're going to get into that discussion again here, aren't we? Because what we've got here is Space Harrier. So this is another arcade port from Elite and another one to file under the banner of Was This Worth It? So let's talk about Space Harrier. So Space Harrier is a proper event of an arcade machine.
It is.
This is top of the line 1985, 1986 version being, because there's 3 arcade versions of this release. There's 3 variants of this. Mm-hmm. There was the standard stand-up arcade version.
Yep.
There was the full cabinet version,
yep.
Which you sat in and surround sound and everything. But the top of the line version was a full-on rolling cabinet, wasn't it?
Yeah, hydraulic, hydraulic cabinet.
Hydraulic cabinet rolled left, right, forward, back, where you do the joystick. So it's a proper experiential game in the arcade. This was a oh my God, if you happen to see anywhere that played this. I'm not sure if we actually had many in the UK. I think there was one in the Trocadero.
There was one in
London.
Yep.
I don't think there certainly wasn't one in Cleethorpes.
No.
No. I think there might have been the cabinet one.
There was. Yeah, there was the cabinet one,
but not the full-on roll. No. So, and also as well, this was the first game. I read that this was the first arcade game to use a 360 analog stick as well.
It was indeed, yeah.
So there we go. This is all supplemented. So not only have you got all this whiz-bangery around it and this pushing of like control systems and effects on the player. This is all supplemented by, at the time, state-of-the-art visuals. Yep. As you flew into the screen, blasting massive dragons, spaceships, rocks, giant heads, all manner of crazy crap that flew at you, and you were lazy. You were a space harrier. So I'm not going to go into the story of this. There's loads of people get killed. There's loads of different space harriers. You're the last one. You've got to go sort out the fantasy zone, which is a series of 18 areas which are full of crazy crap.
In the arcade,
18 in the arcade. Yes, I'm talking about the arcade version here. So even the standard arcade, the non-rolling sit down or the cabinet one offered an experience because it just looked like nothing else. Because this was running, and we talked about this last time, sort of thing. This was running on 2 68,000 processors.
Yep.
It had 448K of memory of ROM. Plus another 12K of RAM, loads of bespoke chips. It was just a massive thing, and it had the 16-bit Sega sprite scaler as well running it.
It did.
So this is a powerful machine.
Yep.
Let's not beat around the bush here. And so what we've discussed here, sort of thing, is then this is then crammed into 8-bit home hardware. All right. And we've discussed this before. So, and it's, this is ported not just to the C64, this was ported to everything by the look of the list I've had a look at. So just the Spectrum, the Amstrad version is really funny. Did you have a look at the Amstrad version?
I didn't actually, no.
It's worth looking at the Amstrad version because you are, the main Space Harrier guy is solid, but everything that comes at you is just vectors.
Yeah, I don't want to see it.
Oh, it's really slow. However, you said this earlier on, the Spectrum version is pretty decent. It's a pretty decent version of this. Yep. I looked at the Spectrum version and went, you know what? That actually looks like Space Harrier, which is more than can be said for this version to some degree. So we've got the C64 version, because what we're faced with here is a version of facsimile of the massive arcade machine in your own home. This is what we've got. This is the weirdness. I will get into the 2 versions a little bit later, sort of thing. But this is so the arcade version, like we said about Gauntlet, with the noise and the impact and the 4 players. It's the wow factor. It looks and sounds like nothing else. Space Harrier is it's a proper boom in the arcades. It's a look at this. There's nothing else like this. This is Yu Suzuki, who would go on to do Yu Suzuki Outrun,
Afterburner,
Afterburner, Shenmue on the Dreamcast, Virtua Fighter. Yu Suzuki is an arcade, Sega legend. Let's not beat around the bush. And he makes this, and so even though it's just an into the screen blast of sort of thing, it's got that Yu Suzuki magic behind it in the arcade. It feels like nothing else. It's really pushing the what an arcade can do at this point. And all of that is lost when you play the C64 version. All of it. The visuals have there's just so much of a massive downgrade in the visuals. It's to be expected because you're trying to cram all that whiz-bangery and chips into a VIC chip, a SID chip, and the CPU. It's just what you got to do. It's just lost. So the game's still fairly fast though. The scaling going on is okay, but it's really not that smooth. And the steps between the scaling is so much sometimes that you'll just get hit because the gap between them, you can't judge it properly. So all too often I'm just getting hit and killed and knocked to the floor. And that's, you don't have enough time to react to it. I don't get why the floor in the arcade is this bright, everything's bright and technical coloured sort of thing. And the floor in the arcade is this great checkerboard effect as you fly across it. The floor in this version, on the UK version, I'll hasten to add here, it's just a solid colour. So there's no sensation of movement or speed because what could be happening as you're flying around is everything coming towards you could be moving and you're just standing still. It's hard to tell because you don't move over the landscape, which is weird because the Spectrum and the Amstrad version both have the checkerboard landscape and moving and just have that effect. So it just seems really dull. The screen just looks really dull and there's no sensation of speed. The animation on the player, I always thought like it's different in the US one, but on the UK one, it looks like he's riding a unicycle when he's on the floor.
It does, yeah.
It looks really crap, and I don't like the way that the sound effects cut the music out.
No.
Just give me music or give me sound effects. Let me choose. There's 11 of the original levels, and it's hard to separate Space Harrier in the arcade from everything around it, but we've done it here. And when you do that, like we found out with Paperboy, like we found out with Gauntlet, when you remove all that arcade blitz and fire, when you remove all that grunted noise, it's just dull into the screen shooter that resembles the arcade if you squint from a distance. But for £10, no, there's just not enough here. It's just another one of them. It was all about the experience. You just empty Space Harrier is what I've coined this as. And I think it's a shame. It's just another one of those. Look what you can have in your home. You can have Space Harrier in your own home, except you can't because it's not really Space Harrier because it doesn't feel like Space Harrier. It's a facsimile of it. It kind of has the trappings of it and the bits of it, but it ain't Space Harrier because it's not. Because Space Harrier is that in the arcade. To know, yeah, we looked at the version we had the American version as well on it, which was released by Sega, had a worse title screen. That's the one good thing about the UK version. It's got a really nice title picture. Mm-hmm. I did like that. But the Sega one has got it's better animated player, for one thing. It doesn't look like it's on a unicycle. And has a striped floor to run on, doesn't it?
Yeah, it gives it kind of a faster effect.
Yeah, at least it looks like you're moving forward. Yeah. No checkerboard though, and the sound effects are different as well. Ultimately though, it still falls prey to the same problems. I just didn't see the point in this. I just didn't understand it. I understand it. It's Elite cashing in on the name, but it's never gonna work. Never. And I don't know what else to say about it. What do you think?
Well, was this a Chris Butler game?
Yeah, it was.
Yeah,
so I didn't want to get into that.
No, I'm not going to go Butler bashing again or anything like that. I think he was handed an impossible job, I think. And if he took that job, fair play to him, this is impossible. I mean, just everything about this arcade game says don't try and convert this to 8-bit. It's running, like you said, two 68,000 processors. It's running two of them at 10 megahertz each. The C64 6510 runs at 1.
I know.
Right? It's got something ridiculous in there, like, I forget because the entire graphic engine for this is separate to its processor. It's got a graphic co-processor. So that proprietary super scalar technology was one of the first games this was ever, first series of games was used, and it was used in loads more after this. Yep. But that famously enabled them to have sort of crazy volumes of sprite scaling going on the screen. I think 32,000 sprites on the landscape. 6,144 independent colours out of 98,000, running in 15-bit RGB high res with shadow and highlights. That's just what's coming out of the graphic chip, let alone the 3 sound chips involved in the music, the amazing Sega soundtrack for this, because the Sega band did the music, the same people did the music for Outrun and stuff like that. Yu Suzuki's a bit of a hero of mine for those arcades because I really, really, really like that series of arcade games. Hang On, Space Harrier, Outrun, and Afterburner. They're like the 4 cornerstones of the amazing early Sega experiences when you went into an arcade. Mm-hmm. Each one in its own unique way. Now, Space Harrier is not my favourite out of those, but in the arcade, it was an amazing thing to see and do. And much later down the line, there's a really great tribute to this entire series of games in Bayonetta. So when you're playing Bayonetta, there's a whole level devoted to basically replicating this, right down to the music, and it plays. And then you get a sense of what this crazy game was like. When you're controlling the flight stick and the joystick in the arcade, it's analog, so your speed depends on how far you push the stick. So you've got to take all of that into account and say, right, what can we do on an 8-bit version of this? What can be done? Well, the Skyrunner game in the last episode showed us that you can do fast, ground-based visual effects. We've had games that have done that kind of stuff flying towards you with a spaceship that can be flying around the screen. So those things are doable, but there's just something not right about this conversion. And I remember thinking when I first saw it way back then, something's not right here. Something's gone badly wrong. The music's kind of a simile. It's the only thing really that's passable in this version. The music's okay.
Yeah.
But it plays really, really badly. Sort of the controls feel weird, and it doesn't feel right. It doesn't feel right. The graphics are horrible in this game, truly horrible. And because it loses the fidelity of the graphics and the sense of speed, they've tried to make it feel like the arcade speed. That's the one thing they've said, well, you know what, we can't do all of this fancy graphics, but we can at least give you the feeling of zooming towards stuff. It doesn't really do that very well. It does it, but it feels erratic, and it feels like there's stages of animation missing, and it's just not very good. And I think the truth of all of this is should never have been converted. It shouldn't be. Don't do it. No, we're going to come across more and more of these, Power Drift, Boogie Boy, Outrun. Now, with the exception of maybe one of those, some of those conversions do not fare well on the Commodore 64. Maybe the sound just about gets away with it, but one after another, these games are poor conversions of those arcade games. Well, understandably, because it's impossible to compete with that hardware. So the C64 version then, taking all of the arcade aside, in fact, let's go for a bit of a thought experiment. Let's take away our knowledge of the arcade, and let's say this game has just come out on the C64. Would we have been impressed with it if this was just a C64 game and there was no arcade? It was just someone had brought out this game where you're flying towards the screen. No, because Skyrunner and a number of other games have done this better and more interesting. And they weren't perfect. They were far from it, but they're better than this. So this feels like it's just bolted together nonsense. Doesn't make sense. The game logic isn't there. The enemy types don't feel like you're really involved. And the whole point of the Space Harrier game, such as it was that you felt like you were in this fantasy world, this crazy environment that was completely nonsensical, and navigating it and flying around. And, it was an exploratory, zooming through the almost first third person game, zooming through this crazy world that made no sense whatsoever, fighting things you'd never even encountered before with this amazing soundtrack. None of those things are relevant to this game. It looked to me like it was like a Dodge the Giant Rock simulator for a while, and that was enough for me, I thought. And then when I played the US version, all right, it's got Sega and its badge, and it says by Chris Bueller, I think, on that one, and it's got a couple of extra details. You're not saving this game from being what it is, which is rubbish, and that's the tragedy. Again, Elite have come along and gone for a big license. There was never a chance in a million years this was going to convert well, ever. It doesn't. I mean, it would have been hard on the Mega Drive. And I think there is a Mega Drive version, which is obviously better.
There's a version of on everything.
But I mean, even the Mega Drive, which is a 16-bit machine, and the Amiga versions later and stuff are still nowhere near the same power and graphic and everything else. I mean, it's a hydraulic cabinet at the top end of this. Just don't do these conversions. Don't do them. We've had to replay this one because of this podcast, and it's starting to really feel like I think it shows up the Commodore 64 for one of its worst faults, not for all of the great things you could do. And there are games that will come along, thankfully, that do show the C64 what it's capable of in the right hands. I'm not saying Chris Butler wasn't equally capable of doing that, but here he's just been handed something that was impossible to convert, and I think that's what shows. So
do you know?
It's not good.
Yeah, thinking about it, and I was just thinking just then as you were talking about, would I like this? I was like, no, because you know what this. If I take the arcade version away and I just think of this, you know what it reminds me of? It reminds me of one of those LCD games.
Yeah, absolutely.
Because there's frames of like animation, and it's like an LCD game of like seeing something coming at you and just filling in the blank. Yeah. There's no smoothness to any of the scaling. Yeah. Like those aliens that go past and then they whirl around and come forward. They're there. There's like they're not smoothly moving. They're not tweening between the frames. They're just there. So it's all jerky scaling, and that's my problem with it. So I don't think even if there'd have been no arcade game and this just came out of nowhere, it would have been interesting to look at and go, it's quite interesting, I guess, but it don't work. No. And so I think what you have here is an LCD version of it, which is it's just strange.
Yeah, I agree. I think there's just so much of space area missing from this, that it's just punching holes, really. And I think it just feels like it's taking pot shots at the Commodore 64. And it's not, at this point, this isn't the Commodore 64 still has a lot to offer. Still stuff coming out for it now. It's just this is taking the gloves off and starting to kick the machine around the room. And I think that's wrong. I don't think that's right. And I think it's exploiting at the time it would have been exploiting people's ideas around arcades and how those home versions work. And as we said about Paperboy and a number of others, I think it's exploitation of people, and I think that's really wrong. So
I think you're right.
I think it's a great tragedy. We're going to come, sadly, I feel, we're going to come across more and more of these.
We are indeed. But there you go. That's Space Harrier. Empty Space Harrier. There's lots of empty space. Let's move on. To a weird one. This is not an arcade conversion, despite the fact it looks it, but does have a very interesting and checkered history, which I'm sure you will enlighten us about, because this is Bomb Jack 2.
Yes.
So Graham, tell us all about Bomb Jack 2.
Well, Bomb Jack 2 is, well, I'll tell you what, right now, I'd never heard or anything about Bomb Jack 2. So when I loaded Bomb Jack 2 up to play it and started the game, I was struck instantly by the fact that it had the Thundercats music in the in-game. I was like, that's weird.
What I thought.
Because when I looked at it, I thought, why has he got the Thundercats music? And in fact, thinking about it, this looks nothing like Bomb Jack. There are no bombs in it. So I thought, right,
pick up money
bags. So I thought, okay, so I thought, do you know what? I'm going to turn to that wonderful website that exists out there and the book, The Games That Weren't, because I had a funny feeling that this was either a Thundercats game that never was, or something had happened, and lo and behold, there was an entry which we'll post in the show notes, and there's an amazing video in there. So I owe a lot of the following commentary, which I'm about to go through in brief, to the video, the really brilliantly in-depth explanatory video about this on thegamesthatweren't.com. I say we'll post a link in the show notes. So the story is this. Apparently, in a desperate move to get the Thundercats game released before Christmas, because Elite had got the license for that, they hired Paradise Software to develop one. They started developing their own in-house. So there was 2 Thundercats games being developed at the same time. And then since both of those games were nowhere near being developed and fleshed out and ready for Christmas, they co-opted a release of a third one, which was actually a game that was under development at the time by FTL and our friends at Gargoyle Games. So they had a game called Samurai Dawn, which had only had a couple of adverts thrown out there, but they were thinking of doing that. So, without going into all of the diatribe of who did what, where, and when, and how, the official Thundercats, The Lost Eye of Thundera game was actually Samurai Dawn. They'd converted the graphics and made it, and that's what came out as the Thundercats game in the end. The Paradise Software game, the original one that they'd sort of brought out, that was later released as Beyond the Ice Palace on the Commodore 64 and other variants. So that was that one. And the other one that they developed in-house, the one that the other also ran that never was, that was the third Thundercat game, and the general conception is that is what became Bomb Jack 2. Which explains why, explains why when you look at it, because they just probably got it so far and didn't want to waste the code, but if you look at the game, the main sprite looks more like Lion-O than he does Bomb Jack, because he's got orange hair, he's in a little blue leotard, and he's a smaller sprite. You're jumping around a level which is more akin to sort of platform levels in a kind of jungle-ish type, sort of planetary Thundera type world than it is to a Bomb Jack environment, which is just kind of random backgrounds with, platforms on them. It does have that kind of logic, but there's no bombs in this game. You actually jump up and collect money and avoid what look like lizard creatures and monsters of Thundera, Third Earth, And the in-game music is the Thundercats theme, which I think is really the giveaway. So I think in reality, Bomb Jack 2 was Thundercats, but because they couldn't get it released in time, they released the other one, and then this was just changed where necessary to Bomb Jack 2 for reasons that I'm not even sure about, because it's nothing like Bomb Jack. Doesn't play like Bomb Jack, doesn't feel like Bomb Jack, and isn't very good. So now Zapped gave this and actually gave it an 80% in their review because they thought it was all right. And now I don't know if they were playing the same thing I was playing, because I felt that this was a really weird jumpy platform thing that didn't make a lot of sense. It was really oddly coloured, which meant the levels looked really garish and had sort of dinosaurs in it, which I thought was odd. And Bomb Jack didn't seem to jump around in the way that I expected him to, nor did he have any bombs. So it felt a bit nasty looking and a bit crappy. You kind of collect cash in it, which was also odd. So one of the reviewers did say that he thought it was a bit naff. But for me, it was a repetitive load of just nonsense, beaten into kind of it's clearly a game that was beaten into a different shape from its origins and realised into this kind of Bomb Jack thing. I think it shows a weird desperation in the Elite. If any of that is true, I think, which I suspect it might be, because all of those other things seem to be true. And there is some extra commentary in there from Mark Cooksey, who did the music for this, about the music that he did for Thundercats. And, why would you put Thundercats music in a Bomb Jack game is the question I think he's been asked. And he was like, well, it didn't matter really, because you could do whatever music you wanted. Then copyright was kind of this like, what he didn't say was, well, he didn't come out and say this was Thundercats, but I think we all know really that it was that. So a big, huge nod to the games that weren't for amazing information, and a big 2 fingers to Elite for releasing this piece of crap. So I thought the game was rubbish. It just has quite an interesting story to it. What did you think?
We're going to split here because I actually quite enjoyed this. I thought I quite enjoyed the sort of arcadeness of it. Once you get past the nonsense of the Thundercat stuff, and I looked at it and I was like, yeah, and it just reminded me like Poltergeist. Imagine them having someone up against the thingy. You only changed the visuals. You left the underlying thing, but you only changed the visuals. And that's what I thought. Anyway, yeah, it's Jack jumps from platform to platform. If it is Jack, whoever it is, collecting pots of gold. They'd have sort of put some of the Bomb Jack DNA slightly in there because you've got to get them in the right order. The pots of gold change, you get the right one, and it goes, and you kept them in order. So there is that, like the bombs that are going off, you get bonus points. Yeah, monsters patrol the platform. It is a stranger game than Bomb Jack, but Bomb Jack was pretty crappy on the 64, and I didn't actually mind this. I mean, it is what it is. It's a single screen arcade game. I wouldn't say it's 80%, no, and I think it's way overpriced at a tenner. If this had been a budget title, which I think this could have been, this would have been a really decent little budget title. It's because there's a simple arcade logic to it. You're just bouncing around from thingy to thing, trying to avoid the monsters or push them off the thingy to collect the gold. It's simple arcade logic, and I generally don't mind those kind of things because it's nippy, it's fast, it plays quite well, it's responsive. It does get a bit repetitive. I would like to have seen a bit more variety in the screens. I got quite far. I like the fact that it reminded me of what's the one, Mr. Doo, in the way that the monsters sort of evolve as if you leave them on screen for too long. So they evolve, and then eventually they'll start chasing after you from platform to platform. And so for what it was doing, I have no idea what it's got to do with Thundercats. If whatever the Thundercats game was going to be, because I don't remember Lino jumping from platform to platform to pick up things. So there's obviously been a change in plan somewhere along the line, and I'm not quite sure. And you're right. The main sprite does look like Lino, which is funny. And I twigged that something had gone on with the Thundercats thing because it looked weird and the music and everything. But in light of what we've been playing, in light of everything that we've just gone through, in light of it's a knockout in Starglider, from Xevious onwards, through Tarzan, Space Harrier, this was a bit of light relief. To me, it was a simple, and it may have been that at the end of that run, I was just looking for something. And maybe in grander company, I may not have been as so favourable. It would be nice to be like, But I think where this came here, I'm just going to come down. I'm a bit more favourable on it because just that simple arcade single screen logic will always, if it's fast and snappy and responsive, I'll always give it a play. And I quite, I'm always a bit of a fan of that. So this was all right. It was all right. But it's too expensive. Yeah, it's way too expensive.
It's fair to have that view. I think you're deluded, but I think it's fair to have it.
Fair enough.
Because
I'm used to that.
At the kind of money that you're paying out for this, it's just shocking. It's just not very good. But
it's not a tenner. But for a couple of quid, this would have been a good budget.
It is a tenner. That's the thing. It was a tenner. So
yes,
I
know.
You can't look retrospectively and say if only it wasn't what it was. It was a tenner. So in actuality, it was an expensive, bad conversion of nothing. But like you say, in its heart, so we said the same about Bomb Jack. In its heart, somewhere there's a game there's an arcade inspiring thing in there. This is just wrapped in really weird wrapping paper. It's odd.
Yeah, it was better than Bomb Jack. Put it that way.
Well, but that's not saying a lot, is it? Because
no, it's not.
Bombo was we thought Bombo was better, but Bombo was actually arguably not as good as, or just a side. It's like a sideways move. I don't know. I just don't know why they called it Bomb Jack. But
because they had the license, didn't they?
Well, yeah, but that's what it feels like to me. This is what frustrates me a little bit about this. I mean, take the game aside, all right, there's playable parts and whatever. But this was never released because it was that. This was released because they knew that people who'd like Bomb Jack would buy it. And that is taking advantage of people's good nature.
That's a fair point, actually, yeah, because this is nothing like Bomb Jack. Apart from that, you've got to collect the things in a certain order to get the bonus points. That's the only thing that it sort of takes from Bomb Jack. Because Bomb Jack is a 2D flat plane and you're jumping up and gliding and doing all that. All that's gone. And so it is weird in that respect. I'm not quite, but I can't see how this would be a Thundercats game.
But remember, this was developed in-house by Elite. So, I don't know.
I think what that means, it was just developed in someone's house.
Yeah, I think it's just, what? They at a certain point in time, they had 3 Thundercats games, only one of which became a Thundercats game, and it never even started out as that.
Well, I was going to say, which wasn't even a Thundercats game.
No, interesting.
How
But
bizarre.
apparently there's only one screen of the Samurai game. That game was never released, and I don't think there's any footage of it or anything like that. At least I didn't find any, but there's one little screen in an advert of Samurai Dawn from Scene VG that is remarkably similar to Beyond the Ice Palace, albeit that they changed some of the colours and things. So.
All right. Well, we'll never know. Lost the
I
time.
think they make a point of saying that they absolutely pasted Beyond the Ice Palace when it came out, but there was another game that was similar that they really liked. So anyway, go and watch the video to get a good background.
I'll go have a look.
It is really
share
interesting,
it and I'll have a look.
Yeah, I'll put it in the show notes, and anyway, and it's in the notes for the or it's in my notes actually. I put it in the thingy, but yeah.
Here we go. So that's that. That's our last one. That's a lot of games and a lot of stuff. It's another massive episode, and it's only 2/3 of February 1987. We still have another 14 games to come next week. So what have we looked at today? Let me go back. So we've looked at Park Patrol, which we liked, Howard the Duck, which we didn't, Los Angeles SWAT, which doesn't stand up very well, Xeno, which was dull, Legend of Kage, which was 2-frame wobblesome, Scooby Doo, which angered us, 10th frame, okay, but a bit dull. Light Force, which we liked. Xevious, which was again coming after Light Force, pointless. Starglider, which was stupid. It's a knockout, crap. Tarzan, average, perfectly average in every way. Space Harrier, which is again a pointless conversion really, and Bomb Jack 2, which is the Thundercats game that never was. It's an interesting series of games. Coming up next week, we've got the last lot of games, so we've still got 14 games to pull out from this issue. And there's some interesting stuff coming up next week, because we've got Escape from Singe's Castle. Mm-hmm. We've got Cobra. I haven't played that. I've played loads of that back in the day, so I'm really dreading what it's going to be like. Sigma 7, I have an idea about.
Rob Hubbard soundtrack.
Yeah, it has on it. Defcom. Don't know anything about that. Terra Cresta, which I'm looking forward to playing.
That one.
You seen what's next?
Oh, Surf Champ.
Yeah, it comes with a surfboard.
How are we going to play that without the surfboard?
Don't know. We'll have to figure something out. We just put a lolly stick across your keyboard or something.
Oh, no.
Put I don't know, a tray or something.
We'll
it's just a flat board. It's essentially going to be the keys on the left do one thing, the keys on the right do the other.
Yeah, true.
That's all it's going to be.
Just don't stand on it.
No, don't do that. Then we've got Destroyer. They Stole a Million.
Is that the Epic Swan Destroyer?
Possibly. Judge Dredd, Molecule Man, Arctic Fox, The Vikings, 1943, and finally Championship Wrestling. So boatloads of games still to come for this month, and we've got a special something as well.
We have a special
to be included in there.
We do.
We do. So that's a lot of games. So we've got loads more coming next week. If you haven't already, if you're interested in supporting the podcast, that would be really cool. And if you want to, and you can spare the price of a pint of beer, if you're not in London, half if you are, a month, then you can support us on Patreon, where you can get some cool stuff. You can join our Discord server. It's literally about £4 odd, or whatever that is in your local currency. So you can get access to our Discord server. There's the stuff we're releasing up on there, which is for patrons only. You get... What do you get? Every second month, you'll get a postcard or something. Yeah. With some kind of bizarre artwork or something we'll do. Yeah. So comment from somewhere, you get all the posts and stuff, you get our thanks and generally, help us keep stuff going. So if you want to do that, then that's ace, and helps us keep the servers running and keep us doing this thing, because we've still got a long way to go. We're only up to issue 22, and we've got tons and tons of whatever it is. There's loads. There's so many issues
hundreds
still to play through.
Games to go.
Yeah, hundreds and hundreds. So we're going to go for a while. But so if you can help us out, that would be cool. We've not got any crap verts. We're saving our crap verts for the end of next week to sort of round it up. And I think that's it. Unless we've got anything more we want to add. Anything more you want to say?
No, absolutely not. No, just tune in next time for some really interesting, crazy shenanigans. And by the way, as a special treat at the moment, there's quite a lot of advert reduxes popping up on our Discord server for our Patreons. options. So if you fancy looking at some of those, just join in the fun. Come and join in. I'm even taking requests for some of them, and they're turning out pretty crazy. I tell you, we're having a good laugh on there. So come and join that fun. It's really good fun.
Yes, that would be really helpful if you can. And so there you go. I think on that note, should we end? I think that'll be about it, really. I think we should. So, as ever, I have been Adrian Mills.
And I have been Graham Raddings.
And you have been listening to Zapped to the Past. And we will see you again next week. Goodbye.
Thank you for listening to the Zapped to the Past podcast. We hope you enjoyed our deep dive into the world of Commodore 64 games, as well as the music, films and TV from around the 1980s, driven, of course, by the issue of Zap 64 magazine published at that time. We will return with a whole new batch of games and stuff to talk about next week. Until then, if you want to listen to or download previous episodes of Zapped to the Past, and why wouldn't you, they can all be found on our website at zappedtothepast.com, as well as being available on Podbean, Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, Spotify, Deezer, Audible, Player FM, and, well, pretty much anywhere where we can upload them. By the way, we do always love to hear from our amazing listeners, so if you'd like to contact us about anything in the podcast or beyond, you can do so by emailing us at zappedtothepast@gmail.com. We're also active on Twitter under @ZapTother, as well as Facebook, Instagram, and most social media platforms. Just search for Zapped to the Past and you'll find us. Oh, and if you like the podcast and what we're doing, please do like, share, review, rate us. It really helps. Something, apparently. The Zapped to the Past podcast is written and produced by Adrian Mills and Graham Raddings, and recorded at Flaky Bits 2.0 Studio. All opinions expressed are those of the writers, and while we indeed love Zap 64 magazine, the Zapped to the Past podcast is not affiliated with it in any way. Stay safe, see you next time, and remember, we play these games so you don't have to.